Okay, Chair, we're live on YouTube, so I'll hand over to you to start the meeting.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to East Devon District Council's virtual Arts and Culture Forum meeting on the 6th of November 2024. I am the newly appointed member champion for Arts and Culture and therefore your new chair, Councillor Ollie Davey. Before we begin the meeting, I would like to thank my predecessor, Councillor Joe Whibley, for his contributions to arts and culture across the district and for his excellent chairing of the forum. I would also like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. The meeting can be viewed live online and will be recorded, so please bear this in mind throughout the meeting. And therefore, may I remind colleagues to be careful with their language and that the code of conduct applies throughout our meeting. We reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant disrupting the meeting by whatever means. Please turn any phone devices off or onto silent. And as this Arts and Culture Forum meeting is dependent on internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection or a power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we're not able to reconnect, we'll consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. So please check the committee page on our website for details. Please make sure all microphones are muted when you're not speaking to avoid any background noise levels. Keep your points short and don't repeat points that have already been made and do not interrupt. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting our website, www.eastdevon.gov.uk. We'll now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members here present. Can you please unmute your microphone and when you hear your name, confirm by saying present. When you've confirmed you're present, please mute your microphone again. So, Alethea, you're going to read out the committee list.
Yep. So, Councillor Davey.
Present.
Councillor Barlow.
Present.
Councillor Dorbar.
Present.
Councillor Faithful.
Present.
Councillor Fernley.
Present.
Councillor Gazzard. Councillor Hookway.
Present.
Okay, and I've had apologies for the other members, Chair, which I'll read out in a moment.
Okay, thank you. So we are quorate, and so agenda item 1 is public speaking. Don't think we have any.
No.
Nope, that's fine. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. If anyone has any comments on the minutes from the 12th of June, please do this by raising your hand. If I have no hands raised, I'll take this as an indication you're all happy that the minutes are accepted. Any comments on those? No, that's all good then. And agenda item 3, apologies.
Okay, so I've had apologies from Councillor Vicky Johns, Councillor Jenny Brown, Councillor Colin Buchan, Councillor Jenny Bull, Councillor Amrit Singh, Councillor Joe Whibley, and also from Graham Whitlock.
Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest.
Okay, so mindful of the new code of conduct, do any members of the forum have any declarations? If so, please state your declaration, including which agenda item your declaration relates to, and also state exactly what the interest is and the specific type of interest that you're declaring. So there's a hand up from Councillor Barlow and Councillor Hookway.
So item 10, I am a director of Sidmouth School of Art, and they got a grant.
Thank you. Nick?
Sorry. Yes, agenda item 9 affects NRI. I'm an Exmouth Town Councillor. Thank you, Chair. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, I possibly ought to mention that as well. I'm also an Exmouth Town Councillor. Anyone else? No, that's good. Okay, so agenda item 5, Villages in Action. So we have Maya George and Creative Director, Villages in Action. So over to you, Maya. Oh, you're on the ball. There we go.
Lovely. Great, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. So for those who don't know me, as Councillor Davey said, I'm Mara George and I'm the Creative Director of Villages in Action. So we're an arts charity working across rural Devon to nurture creative and cultural opportunities. We have a small team of part-time workers and freelancers, and our agriculture network is made up of over 150 volunteers, promoters, co-curators, venues and artists. When I presented to the forum in June earlier this year, I detailed our approach, how we work with rural stakeholders. At its heart, our agriculture model is about making work together and making work happen together. So our locally rooted co-curators who imagine and shape new creative projects with us are inspired by what their communities want and need. Sometimes Villages in Action events provide an opportunity to get together and have a boogie with a live band. Other times, performances offer glimpses into a story that we might not have heard before, and a chance to reflect on these themes with your neighbours. I will report on annual figures of interest when hopefully I present again next summer, but I wanted to use the opportunity today to tell you a little bit more about my performance and participation highlights from the last few months since the last forum, and also to detail a couple of opportunities that are coming up. So Miracle Theatre is a Cornish arts company, and they toured their latest outdoor production of Love Riot, which is a reimagining of Hannah Cowley's classic play, The Bell's Stratagem. The venue, as some of you will recognise, was Goran Farm near Stockland, where they farm, for those who don't know, they farm dozens of varieties of wildflowers and grasses, and they host an annual arts festival in July. For us at Villages in Action, it's important to work with rural businesses who recognise the value that local cultural events bring to their community. Farm owners Julian and Rupert served cream teas for the audience, and they really enjoyed hosting the performance. Wendy van der Plank is a name that a lot of you will know. She's our local promoter as well as a trustee on the board. And her experience and enthusiasm made the event a hugely enjoyable experience. Those in Glass Houses was an outdoor circus performance by Matt Pang and Owen Reynolds. They're jugglers who have worked together in the world of circus for over 20 years. It was a 55-minute performance which celebrates glass and all its fragilities, and it was expertly hosted by Jess McGill at Exmouth Town Council. That's a new collaboration with us, and it was brilliant to see this outdoor event attracting such great numbers of audience. So thank you, Jess, for collaborating with us on that one. The performance, just to give a little bit more context, it was made possible as part of an Arts Council funded regional touring circus project, which was called Circus Around and About. Villages in Action is one of 9 presenting partners, and the project is led by Take Art with sector partners Crying Out Loud and Extraordinary Bodies. The project aims to increase a welcome to diverse audiences, and it also aims to support the circus sector by opening up rural touring opportunities for circus artists. Some of you, I've talked about the Goat Show before when we had it, I think it was 18 months ago now, last in East Devon, but Running Dog Theatre, we're in residence in Farway in July. So this project, the Goat Show, sees a deeper level of engagement with our promoters, volunteers in their communities. Rather than just hosting a one-off performance, the company are in residence in the village for a few days. They led a primary school workshop, a goatee pub quiz, you can see on the bottom left-hand corner, which was all done ahead of the main performance on Saturday afternoon. There were goats involved, as you can see from the pictures. And Jess, our local promoter, was really keen to make the most of the opportunity to have increased activity led by the artists coming to their village. It helps support audience development. And I think it's interesting to note that she put in over 16 hours of volunteer time to make this event possible. Again, I've talked about this show very briefly at a previous meeting, so I just wanted to give a little bit more about the background. So we supported performances by All Right Mate, CIC, earlier this year. The company aims to normalise men having conversations about their own and others' mental health. So the show that they put together, Blind Spot, performed in Orliscombe, Axminster and Exmouth with 3 performances a day. And the performance took place inside the car. So 3 audience members at a time sit in the back seat of the Ford Focus C-Max that you can see in the pictures. And the actors sit in front of them and move around the car. And the audience are eavesdropping on their conversation. So it's 2 strangers who have a chance encounter, and they banter, joke and share stories with each other. Events hosted with Blind Spot are relaxed, friendly and judgment-free. So the photos you can see at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen are from the research and development phase of the project. So photographer Stephen Rath took wet plate portraits. It's a photographic technique from the 1850s, and it's a very slow photographic process. So it means that the men who agreed to be photographed can engage in informal conversation with Callie Hayes from All Right Mate CIC, who is herself a former mental health nurse. The show was created through a series of interviews with men living in Devon through creative workshops like the wet plate photography. And I think it's importantly, the show used humour to explore some of the roadblocks that men face when trying to talk about their feelings. So we are supporting artists to think about rural spaces, to take their work outside of the urban centres of the county. This was a great collaboration and we plan to build on it during 2025. So those are my 3 highlights, and I just wanted to share some of the audience and promoter feedback that we have received. I'll just leave that up there for a moment for anyone that hasn't had a chance to read those. We get really good feedback. We are always delighted with our feedback. People are really honest. People want to give feedback about the not just the event and kind of everything going on around it, things like booking tickets, what that experience is like, but also about what's happening, you know, in front of them, the kind of artistic quality of what's created, of what they're witnessing. And for us, that shows that there's a really vibrant creative community that want to input, you know, and want to kind of be heard. So we make sure that people have lots of opportunities to do that. So that's the, I'm going to stop there about our highlights. So we have submitted a proposal. I know it's later in the agenda, but for a £5,000 contribution from the forum so that we can recruit an agriculture network lead for East Devon specifically. So I've highlighted here the 3 key details. We want that person or people, it could be more than one person, it could be a shared role. We want them to galvanise the East Devon network to act as a local support for new promoters and members of our network, offering on-the-ground support for first-time events. This is often a place where our volunteers feel that they need a little bit more support when they're kind of getting started with us. So we think this role will be really helpful in helping them think about things like risk assessment and other really practical event management training that they might need. People want to feel that they're part of a network of people who understand how challenging making community-based artistic and cultural work is in the current climate. So this role would really help that. We also want this person to represent Villages in Action at co-creation meetings with partners, at wider networking events, to be able to more regularly meet representatives from other organisations so that we can better collaborate, plan and co-design shared projects, always with a focus on community-based asset development. What is it that we have in our rural communities? What work is already being done? And how can we amplify that work or increase the quality of that work by working together? How can we support those excluded from cultural life? If we do work together a little bit more. So for example, this person might be able to build on the Village Exchange pilot that we hosted last year, perhaps offering different development opportunities for young musicians as a follow-on to our Ottery music project. And finally, we want this role does offer paid employment opportunities. As I said, it could be one or two or three people who are already a part of our network, but we will, the aim would be to advertise this role, to do an open call out. And we want basically to grow the team in line with our longer term ambitions to grow the East Devon hub of Villages in Action. So as many of you will know, we cover a large part of rural Devon, and the East Devon hub has always been that little step ahead of the other regions. Promoters want to work together in terms of co-programming, ensuring events are well attended across the whole area, reaching people that they should be reaching or that they need to work a little bit harder to reach. Shared initiatives, including providing a range of performances and creative participation opportunities across a cluster of villages, for example, who might want to work together. For example, we might have promoters who aren't able to offer homestay to the artists, something that keeps rural touring affordable. Our promoters, our volunteers welcome in artists to their home. It might be that they share equipment, but it's a lot to ask one person to do by themselves. So this role will really help reach a wider number of communities. Finally, this is an extra slide. I'm very sorry I hadn't sent this earlier on, but I would like to do a little shout out for Make Good, which is a performance that's coming up on the 16th of November, so not long now, 10 days time. It's a musical that tells the story of the post office scandal. It's made by Pentabus Theatre, who some of you will know. They've been going for a very long time in rural touring, and they create new and original work that's hugely enjoyed by audiences. It's going to be at Stockland Victory Hall. Tickets are available on the VIA website, but we do expect to sell out. Our events recently have been selling out, and so I would encourage anyone that would like to go along either to let me know, let Wendy van der Plank know. I know she has already been in touch with some of you, and we hope to see some of you there. We're delighted that we have the only date in Devon and that it's going to be in Stockland. That's everything from me. I wanted to keep it fairly short. I was always happy to answer any questions, or if anybody would like to follow up with me following today's meeting, that's my email address. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Maya. So we'll start with non-members from outside the committee. Anyone with any comments or questions? Actually, I did get to see those in Glass Houses performance, and I'm sure that Zoe and Jess will be pleased to hear that I cycled to it as well, to the Strand, and it was very entertaining, and everybody who watched it enjoyed it, and it was a good thought, Jess, to put the benches out as well. Because people really appreciated being able to sit there and watch the performance. But yeah, it was excellent fun, and there was a lot of sort of, oh no, it's okay, they're going to break them, it's fine. It was great. Okay, any other comments or questions? Charlie?
Thanks, Chair. So I can't find, when you sort of switch between Teams and Zoom, just trying to find the hands up. So I'll just wave my hand till I found it. Just a quick question to Maya, just on the additional funding proposal. Are there going to be specific KPIs, metrics put in place to be clear about the value added that we're going to get into East Devon? I'm not, commenting on the relevance and the quality of what you're submitting. It's just been very clear about how the additional funding is going to make a difference within East Devon specifically, because I'm assuming that that's part of a shared role, because for 5,000 for a post, one assumes that perhaps it's part of a wider bid you're looking at, Devon. I may be wrong. It would be good to get clarification on that. And just to make you aware, we've got some fairly tough budget decisions to make going forward. I'm sure you're aware, but it's important, that I raise that as an officer, so that that when we come to consider this, there will be a process that we'll need to go through internally, and I'm sure Sarah has spoken to you about that. The more detail, the more specific detail about the difference, the impacts will make in East Devon, as say KPIs, metrics, would really help us to understand how this will add value to the brilliant work that you're already doing, and very, very supportive of the work the Villages in Action is doing, and long may that continue. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, absolutely. We will absolutely put those together, but I think probably specifically this is about where we struggle the most is in terms of we are a tiny team, and we know that there are many more people who would like to host events with us. But what's difficult for us is that on the ground time to spend, with them doing that first successful event. So for us, I think what we would be looking for is increased numbers of promoters. We have some really dedicated promoters, and we've been able to bring on 3 in the last 18 months in East Devon. So those are younger people, perhaps not of retirement age, also people from previously excluded groups. So we know that those people, we have names of people who would like to do more with us, but there's a lot of risk is taken, and while other members of our network have committees, so village hall committees and things like that to back them up, what we're finding is that everyone's really quite risk averse at the moment. So where in the past people were very quick to take events and make them happen, because of what's happening in the sector, I think there's and what's happening sort of generally with funding, there's a lot of I think fear around events not breaking even, events not managing to kind of break through that. And so we know that we have expertise, within the team, and we know if we could spend more of that time on the ground. We already obviously do a bit of this, but it's about doing more of it. So it's those people that we have lined up who need that extra bit of support. So we would be looking at increased numbers of volunteers working with us, but also increased numbers of underrepresented promoters working with us. So thinking about work for children and families, we would like to recruit more volunteers into our network who might be parents of young children. Again, they just need somebody, they're very happy, willing to spend the time, but they just need that extra support in terms of being able to say yes and take that risk. So really for us, it's about the numbers, but it's also about the diversity of who those volunteers are that are working with us. And that's really what we're concentrating on with this role.
Lovely, thanks, Maya.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Hookway.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, really sort of following on from what Charlie was saying. Thank you, Mayor, for your presentation, which was very interesting, certainly from someone who lives in Exmouth and has very little idea what villages might be doing in the rural parts of East Devon. I found it very, very helpful. Absolutely take your point about risk and people being risk averse. At the present time, I think that's very sensible. We have problems with the economy. Nobody's got any disposable income, but that has to be measured against the impact on health and well-being of people who take part in your activities. So Charlie's absolutely right. We will have to be very careful this year with finances and so on. But thank you for what you're doing. Please try to keep going, because it is of great benefit to those who enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nick. Councillor Ian Barlow. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, just going back to the 2 previous speakers, can you confirm then, Mayor, please? Because again, obviously, I'm not going to tell you how wonderful you are, because everyone's already done that. But can you just tell us, how are we going to know that our money is making a difference? So we don't want to know what you intend to do with it, but how can Charlie know that the £5,000 we've given you has increased the amount of people that come to you, or the amount of shows you're putting on? that's how we can measure where our money goes. And does it make a difference? Cheers.
Yeah, so obviously annually I present to the forum, and the numbers, I think, are there. So we measure box office income, in terms of money taken, a number of events, and it's also about the quality and the kind of events that people are taking on. So the reason that I think that we have Arts Council funding is because we are not supporting people to put on easy events, that they can do themselves. That's something we are encouraging our network to do, but it's about taking perhaps stories that are perhaps represented in village halls and rural communities. So for us, something that we will be looking at is and this is work about the long term. So, we are also trying to get people to change the way that they programme. Arts Council will not fund us to support people to put something that will, a band that costs £200 that will fill the room. That's not what we're receiving the subsidy for from Arts Council. So we want to use this to. It's not just about saying we're going to do 10 more events a year, because that's not realistic, but it's about working with the community over a 12-month period and identifying who are the 5 promoters that would like to host events that currently are not feeling like they're able to. So it's not about huge numbers in terms of increase, but it is about ensuring those people who want to do that work for their communities are supported to be able to do that. So I think the increase in box office, the increase of yes, audiences in some regards, but you can see that some of the projects that we are working on, for example, the Blind Spot project, this is, as Councillor Hookway was saying, it's also about increased health and well-being. It's not just about increased numbers. So for us, the diversity of who those promoters are working with us in our network will be a big area that we are looking at. I'm sorry, it might not be quite the answer you want in terms of, we will give you this many extra audiences, this many, but this work takes a long time and it's kind of deeply rooted. And we're at a stage now with East Devon where we have those people in place who want to make those commitments to their communities, but we need to put the extra support in place for them to be able to grow that programme in terms of who is attending. So those harder to reach audiences as well. If we have promoters who are from those excluded groups, that will also increase audience attendance from those particular groups. So we will be looking at metrics around audience attendance and who is it that is coming along to our events.
Thank you, Maya. Yeah, there's obviously going to be quite a lot of thought about what you measure and how you measure it, isn't there? And those will be your indicators of the success of the project. But yeah, as Charlie was saying, we need to think what the KPIs are and ensure that those are embedded so that we get the right data and can show it's been effective. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think along with Sarah, we will align those KPIs to the cultural strategy as we do with all of our work, and we report on that annually as well. So it will be drawing out those the council aligned KPIs as well.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much, Maya. Okay, I don't think we have any recommendations yet, because I think we're dealing with the request for funding separately, aren't we? So thank you for flagging that one up anyway. So we can move on to agenda item 6, Screen Devon, and we have a presentation from David Salas. There it is.
Hello, it's great to be here. I'm David Salas from Screen Devon. Screen Devon emerged out of a 2-year research project from the University of Exeter about what strategic intervention that we could do with it that would improve the situation for the screen industries across the county of Devon. It's a good thing to be looking at the screen industry at the moment. The reason for that is that the screen industry is a growth industry with a large amount of growth happening. This was figures from the British Association for Screen Entertainment in 2024. I don't know how much sort of people have been sort of paying attention to the news or how focused they are on the screen industries, but it's not a completely clear picture. And globally, there's a lot of sort of challenge around things like AI, and there's sort of some challenges around freelance employment. However, when you look at the local picture, our picture is actually a little bit better. So whilst employment has been more challenging in the traditional centres, what we are seeing is that the employment and activity in the regions has increased. So Bristol and Cornwall are busier, hitting capacity in summer 2024. So they both said that they couldn't cope with more productions around by up to sort of like in April, they were booked out to July. And we've also got sort of new screen agencies emerging across the UK, Creative UK, which is the national screen agency. So the most are now sort of launching. So this means that we are in a good position locally on a growing economic sector. I think some people are unclear on what a screen agency is, and that's partly because there's lots of different names for them. Sometimes they're referred to as film offices or film commissions. In general, it pretty much does two things. One is it promotes a region's capabilities for hosting screen productions that are incoming. These are generally like large international productions that spend millions. And if your region is able to host them well, then they come and they shoot here and they spend it in the local economy. But they also look at developing the local screen industry. So that's making sure that the local community are developing the talent that's here and they're getting the access to the screen industry that they would not otherwise. Screen agencies are ordinarily governmental organizations, and we're a little unusual insofar as we've set up as independent. And that's been because actually historically, Devon has been challenged to get everybody to work together on the kind of county level or the scale that that really would work well for a screen agency. And this means that Screen Devon provides an opportunity because we are independent and are able to work across the different local authorities, but we will need to work very closely with local authorities. We know that if you do this well, that we can produce benefits to the local economy. Screen Cornwall, which set up in 2019, has sort of posted that in their time, I can't see my whole slides because of the screen, but in their whole time, they've kind of like generated 5 million to the local economy. And we've benefited greatly, both in the research phase and now in our relationship with Screen Cornwall, who've kind of fed into the project in terms of that research. And we're now sort of like also involved in a Southwest partnership. So connecting the dots between sort of Bristol, Somerset, Devon, Cornwall. Devon's screen industry, you will see here that actually we don't really have a specific screen agency. We're kind of emerging now, and this is what we're looking to get some funding to be able to sort of make ourselves into reality. Basically, we have sort of like got investment for pilot work, and we're looking at then sort of extending how that kind of work with government is going to happen. But I think it's quite clear that most of the other sort of like surrounding counties have lined up and do appreciate the scale of operation needed. I think Devon's actually done really, really well historically. I think we've hosted incredible productions and people regularly look at Devon as a place to film. I know the Game of Thrones producers looked at Devon to base Game of Thrones. I think because we haven't got things joined up, our actual market capture is about 0.009% of UK productions that are filming. This comes from 2021 data from the UK's creative agency. We know that people like filming here. Steven Spielberg came with Warhorse and said that of all the places he'd ever been, you know, filming in Devon was one of those most special. You'll also notice this picture, which was shot in Devon by the world's most famous cinematographer, Sir Roger Deakins, who was responsible for Skyfall in 1917. He still lives in Devon. I think there is an issue of scale. So one of the things that we need is we need to work at a larger scale if we really want to benefit. And that means that all of the counties sort of needs to pull together. And one of the reasons for this is to do with the travel time that a production will look like versus the local authority boundaries. So the Southwest is the largest English region. So, and all of the public service broadcasters are increasingly required to base TV productions in the regions. And there's only one film and TV studio in the Southwest, which is in Bristol. And that studio is so busy that they're actually looking to expand further. So that we're seeing more productions coming in, or a trend for more productions coming in, that is incentivized by central government. East Devon is absolutely beautiful, and I think that it tells its own stories why you would want to come here. The challenge is that when you look at the local authority map, you're kind of split into sort of 11 different districts, if you consider that that Devon County Council sits on top of that, and each have like then reduced sort of budgets and also reduce sort of time potentially to sort of look at this. So some regions can look and some regions can't. And we don't have very much time across the whole of the county where people are dedicating their time into the film offer. East Devon actually is doing really well in that. But it is a sort of challenge across the county. And the reason why that kind of matters is that when a production comes in, it's a very expensive thing to go to location to film. However, there's lots of benefits to doing it. When you shoot in a beautiful place, that's translated to the screen, but it's an expensive thing to do. So what productions will tend to do is they'll block out a block of time and then see how much they can use in that time. And they'll look within a 1 hour travel radius. The reason for this is when they go over a 1 hour travel radius, they have to pay their staff more. This means that actually, in terms of the way that a film producer is going to look at sort of shooting in Devon, you will see this larger catchment area than covered by the local authority boundaries. Acting as an independent screen agency, we are more able to position opportunities in East Devon. Let's say if we've got somebody that's sort of like looking at a shoot where they choose a location in Torquay or Exeter, we can nicely position how brilliant it would be to shoot in East Devon. And this would increase East Devon's incoming screen production. We've also got lots of talent in Devon. Devon actually, I think, is a fantastic place for creativity. In the London Film Festival in 2020, Devon filmmakers won that, which is an incredible feat because it's highly competitive worldwide. And that kind of like filmmaking talent coming out of here is competing really effectively on the world stage. East Devon has incredible talent. We're going to be at the Exmouth Film Festival, where we're bringing in industry professionals. One of the second unit directors from Wonka, which is a blockbusting film, as well as sort of like bringing the UK's Creative UK, the UK's screen agency, to Exmouth, and also sort of inviting people like Emmy award-winning filmmakers that are based in the region. So Exmouth actually has incredible talent here, and Devon more broadly has the world's most famous cinematographer who says that they would, if they could, work in Devon more than anywhere else in the world. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Screen Devon. I think it's relevant to ask who we are. We emerged out of this research project, which was basically 2 years of looking at what strategic interventions we could make that would benefit the screen industries and the people of Devon. We are working with sort of local government. We have to be completely aligned and in partnership. And our mechanism for doing that is really via our membership. So we have a local authority board where all of the different local authorities have a place with funding members eligible for being the chair. And the chair of that board then sits as the key member of the company. And we serve the interests of the members. That's as companies do. We're a not-for-profit company. The other members are the Exeter Phoenix, which is probably the key arts organisation for screen industries in the region. It's kind of somewhat similar to the Watershed and the Pervasive Media Studio in Bristol. We have Plymouth Culture and the University of Exeter. In terms of our board of directors, we're affiliated with the Exeter Phoenix, the University of Exeter. Fixstars is a local sort of fixing agent. So this is basically people on the ground who connect incoming productions to the local talent. Rebecca Ramsden, or Bex as she likes to be known, is an East Devon resident. So we've got East Devon representation on our board of directors. We have a film logistics company, Devon Film Logistics, University of Plymouth, and Fabian Films, who've been very successful at gathering international money in for filmmaking projects. We've got the CEO of Real Ideas, Lindsay Hall, and Devon and Cornwall Film, which is an excellent sort of source of information in Devon, Lee Morgan. We also have Joanne Evans, who's a consultant who looks at sort of like strategic interventions and is currently working on the Great Southwest Strategy. So what do we do? Screen agencies need to be holistic. They need to look at lots of different aspects if they're going to be successful. Arguably, one of the most successful screen agencies is Northern Ireland Screen, which completely transformed the Northern Ireland screen sector. And they were really clear about the holistic nature, and that actually you need to both look at the screen culture, the heritage, and the exhibition, because actually that's the part where people first engage to the screen industries. We know that education needs to have a look at, because there was a report published in 2022 saying that education currently is misaligned and is therefore meaning that there are actually job gaps and skills gaps in the UK market. So we need to kind of like correct that for East Devon and make sure that we're getting the right education and giving the right advice in to help make sure that the right roles and skills are being produced. By promoting the region and defining its profile, we do two things. So one of which is that when you talk to all of the national organisations, they repeatedly say that one of the issues they think is that Devon actually sometimes struggles to tell its story of who they are, and this adversely affects its chances for funding from government. And you see sort of like Cornwall being very well able to articulate their argument for identity, and you see the same in sort of like Liverpool and York. And the feedback we get from the national bodies like the BFI is that actually, you know, that Devon could do that a lot better in relation to the screen industries, which I think we could hugely help with. And the fact that we haven't had a kind of one-stop shop to look at the screen industry has been part of that problem. By telling that story and making it clear, we can draw productions in, which will spend in the local economy. I also think as a unique, or not unique, but an unusual configuration, usually screening agencies are within sort of like government, but as I say, because of the structure here, that's not really, it's not emerged yet, and we think it should emerge now. We mean that we have an opportunity to sort of like look at research, which we think is a under investigated angle. So screen agencies should be strong partners with educational establishments for research bids. And I also think that in the current times, we need to be really conscious from like the get-go about sustainability and equality, what works well for our people and our planet. Our goals are to improve Devon's prosperity potential, raise the profile of Devon's talent, culture and landscapes, and ensure that that growth is equally distributed and fair. We've got income streams that we can have a look at, but a lot of those income streams will need to come out of discussions with the various local authorities, because we need to work in partnership. We are asking for money because we need to have some time to work with all the different local authorities to build the databases, meet the people, and then sort of present sort of East Devon and Devon as a whole to the world. We're asking for £10,000 for 72,000 core funding for 2025-2026. Now, the reason why I think that this might be worthwhile is that a medium budget feature film will spend 66,000 per day in a local region. And I think sort of in terms of economic development, we're probably going, okay, for our investment, we're going to look to be increasing more spend in the region. And a lot of that spend will be spent across a variety of different things. So people will rent out car parking spaces, as well as location fees, and as well as catering. So it's not just film professionals, but wider businesses that also benefit. And then after the film does well, you often see a tourism boost. Does this sort of generally work? Well, it can work really, really well. So for example, Screen Yorkshire is really, really good at this. And they've sort of like put 23 million into local production and had a return of 234 million, a 10 times return on investment. As I mentioned before, actually screen tourism sort of like drives international sort of travel, or at least sort of accelerates international travel. It's a nudging factor, which ends up creating sort of large spend in the local economy. However, the challenge is that building capacity, profile and reputation will take time. This is not a 1-year project, it's a 5 to 10 year project, but I think that we will be able to really clearly see what the outcomes are after 5 years. Are you in it alone? Well, no, we're looking to sort of secure core funding from East. At the moment, we've got core funding for where we got to, which has arrived sort of, I think we've finalised in August, got the funding together for starting. August this year, East Devon District Council, Exeter Culture, Devon County Council, Mid Devon District Council, North Devon District Council, Plymouth Culture, North Devon District Council, Torridge District Council, and the University of Exeter. We have had sort of other conversations. We're hoping to expand that. Really, we're hoping for all of Devon's councils and local authorities to fund in. Will then be better able to serve the interests of all. However, I would point out that if you're funding, then you have voting rights on being the chair of the local authority advisory board and therefore the member. Is it sort of like still looking good? Well, I think yes. We know that the UK government sees it as part of their strategy for growth, and they put their money where their mouth is because they've introduced a new tax release for independent film tax credits on the 9th of October 2024, which means you get a 53% relief on tax. And so this shows a commitment that even in challenging times, the UK government is investing in talent. I think that's really good for East Devon because you've got a wide array of talent here, independent talent here. You've got people who are releasing into feature films. You've got Emmy Award-winning filmmakers all in East Devon, and we'd hope to help them leverage these new things like the tax credit by providing advice and connections. So I think you're really well placed to benefit from those interventions by central government. And I think that by investing in Screen Devon will help to make sure that East Devon benefits from the national growth of the sector. Do you have any questions?
Okay. Anyone from outside the committee? Looks as though everybody's from inside. Okay. We'll start with Councillor Ian Barlow then.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Very interesting. You've had £10,000 off us already.
Yeah.
And according to your figures, I think you needed in total core funding was 179,000. Working on your figures, it's not exactly very clear, but trying to work back from the figures you're projecting in your project core income for Model A. So how much have you had so far off all the other councils? And the way I look at that 170, that's about 15 to 20,000 pounds East Devon if there's 11 of us. So have we then put everything in, or are you coming back next year for another big chunk?
We'd be looking at sort of £10,000 a year, basically. And we think that we can succeed with a reduced amount of core funding. I think a lot of the business case and how we can activate revenue streams is something we need to negotiate with each local authority in detail. So, for example, there's a way in which Screen Cornwall is funded and the way that Bristol Film Office is funded is different. So Screen Cornwall kind of like look at a larger amount of core funding, which is constant, and then the local authorities see that benefit in, I suppose, sort of somewhat indirect ways, but they sort of measure it that way and then keep a maintained level of core funding, whereas Bristol Film Office do a sort of percentage sort of split in terms of location sort of fees. So when they do the percentage split, it means that as they can reduce the level of core funding because the existence of the Bristol Film Office increases income into it.
So when are you actually going to, I know you've been looking into this, you've had, I presume, a year of doing this with our money now. When are you actually going to be launching the website and actually, again, it comes back to the previous thing. What are we getting in return? I know words, you can write out a lovely report, it's great. Yeah. At what point are you going to, at what point is our money going to start returning us what you promise in your figures that you put forward?
Well, I would say that the first thing is our projections were we would receive the money in April at the end of the tax year, and so have the money to spend on hiring staff for the time. But the money arrived in August. So we actually have only had the money since August. So, and basically as soon as we got the money, we put out job adverts for the staff that are going to do the work. The interviews sort of are taking place this week, and we'll have staff in place to do the work. So I think that you're raising an incredibly valid point. The only thing I can say is although we were promised the money for April, we didn't actually receive the money till August. So it made it very difficult to make progress in an entirely voluntary way, because we needed the money to be able to do the work. What we are looking to is, it's always been like a 5 to 10 year project. We need sort of time to sort of build this up. So we are looking at returning sort of funding. And what we're trying to do is to go, okay, we've just hired the staff because we've only just received the money. Well, actually, we need to look at, okay, they're not going to be able to turn things around. Well, not turn things around, but it's a longer term project. So we're asking now, because we've always been talking about it being a 5 to 10 year project, but we've only had the money since August.
And finally, instead of having money, I noticed that you've got support in kind from Exeter University. So could we give you, because I noticed you've also got big costs for offices, etc. Could we give you offices instead of cash? Because obviously cash to us is again hard. We've got to look where we're doing with it. Whereas I know we have some offices that are empty at the present time.
I think I would welcome any in-kind contribution that is available. I think at some point we need sort of time. We need staff time to be able to actually activate opportunity. Without any sort of staff time, then it's very hard to see how you would be able to activate the opportunity that's available. So at some point we need to receive funding. I do also think that there's a sense that there is a business model. So I can see a scenario whereby we reduce money over time, and that would be my preferred sort of way forward. I think that the current sort of thing is that, so the first thing, there's two things. Okay, so the first thing is, I don't think it will work if we don't receive money from councils. And this is because in the research phase, when I was talking to the different councils, there was this kind of thing of like, how do we ensure that there's really good relationships and connection, and making sure that we actually work in a really seamless way? Because what we're looking to do is to produce something that functions better for incoming productions and for local authorities. Now, the feedback we were receiving is that when there's sort of money invested in, it's considered more actually part of the actual work, which is why we worked hard on that covenant governance and structure piece to make sure that we have that like direct responsibility to the local authorities. But we also think that functionally, for people to see it as, okay, this is something for us, then there needs to be some sort of amount of money in there, because it's just sort of saying, okay, yes, this is directly something we're putting money in, and so we need to sort of see it as a priority for us on a functional way. Because the research was suggesting that the people at all of the local authorities are doing incredible jobs under really high pressure, which means that sometimes that prioritization piece can be like functionally challenging. Because whilst there's the will in the world to do everything, it tends to be that when you're under pressure, you need to do the things that are most important. So having a kind of like financial commitment in is part of like that relationship building, whereby it becomes an actually true partnership. Now, in terms of like reducing money over time, my preference would be if it has to be a dialogue, and it has to be an extended dialogue with what works for East Devon District Council. I think something based on proportion splits would mean that we would both be seeing income sort of like coming back in and increasing as we raise the amount of productions and funding coming in. So that would be my preference, I suppose, because that would then give you a route of how you could kind of reduce the amount of core funding. But I think a level of core funding is required for it to work functionally. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think good question again, Ian. You know, how do we know we're getting value for money? And again, it's a question of how we measure success and what success looks like, isn't it?
I just wanted to beat Charlie to the question.
I think you're a double act. Okay, Councillor Paula Fernley.
Thank you, Ollie. Thanks for the presentation, David. I'm the creative in the room, the photographer. So I'm absolutely thrilled by this adventure, I'll call it, because I have tried myself. I was looking for work a few years ago, and I found Screen Cornwall, and I thought, what a fantastic thing. Does Devon have a thing like this? And it didn't. So there are so many creatives in Devon who have to move away. You know, they might train in Falmouth University, then they can't come back to Devon to get a job, so they go to Bristol, or they work in Cornwall. I've got family who produce sets for David Attenborough things that's up in Bristol, or they're heading off to London, and that's from a company based in Teignmouth. So there's so much going on in this area, and it seems that it's a shame that our tourism industry, creatives, can't benefit from all of this stuff that East Devon has to offer. So I hope somehow that we can find the funding and make this happen, because I think it's a fantastic opportunity for the area. So thank you for bringing it along. I'm not the hard-nosed businessman like Ian and the council, so I'll leave that to other people.
My hope is that actually it works for both.
Yeah, I think that's very good input, Paul, and good to hear your personal experience there, I think. But yeah, as David says, it's got to work both ways. I mean, we want to see the creative output. That's absolutely thrilling. But at the same time, we want to know we're getting value for money. So.
Absolutely. If I may come back,
Yeah.
it's like all these houses we're building, all these people need jobs, and photographers need studios. And from my level of work, I've had the odd big job, or I've offered to do a training event. I can't find anywhere big enough to do it. So you have to hire a village hall or a really odd space to do something in. So, to have something locally would draw people. And how many thousands of people are we going to have living here over the next, I don't know how many years? So yeah, we certainly, local facilities would help with local jobs.
20 years, I think, Paul. There's the local plan we're looking at. Councillor Nick Hookway.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, David, thank you very much indeed for this really comprehensive report. I thought it was absolutely excellent, and I think it's exactly what we need. Because one of the things we do need to do is to look forward. Undoubtedly, this is a growth area. There's no question about that at all in my mind. And it is something that we need to invest in. I take Ian's point about the money. That's clearly one part of it. But I think there are a huge number of opportunities here. I think we are going to be in a situation where, if I could say, we need to speculate to accumulate. And that's a reference really to the fact that if we spend £10,000 on this, and we have productions going on by film companies, and those film companies are spending £66,000 a day, spending 10k over a year is going to look as a very good return on our investment. However, I don't think that's the whole picture. I think that it is a much wider aspect. It is much wider in terms of the economy and job opportunities. It's important in terms of education. Arts-based education is under considerable pressure in Devon. We need industries that allow people to stay in the county without having to leave. If this allows people to work for film companies and stay in Devon, that's a good thing in my view. Okay, I think it will also have huge benefits in terms of tourism, because it will bring people in to visit the locations after they've been finished with, and people will want to see that. So I think there is a huge opportunity here. Yes, it's a difficult time where the economy is going through a tough time, but this is something that we really must look to the future. I think we need to work as a whole county towards this, and I think there's an awful lot to gain here. So the 10k, yeah, it's an important point. We have to think about that. But I think the what's the word? The actual spin-offs for it are really important. And we need to get our act together with this one, because I think if people realise that we missed out on an opportunity like this, I think they'd be really cheesed off. £66,000 a day spent across the town will have a huge benefit right across the board. And then, of course, there's the increased profile of not only East Devon, but the rest of the county. Tourism is having a hard time at the present time. You only have to look at the local news. Cornwall's had a real bashing, but it's not been that brilliant either over here. We need to get people down here, and it doesn't matter what they do, but this is a very effective way of doing it, and I absolutely welcome this report. So I support it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nick. Powerfully put. And just a small example. I mean, what we need is some kind of series shot here that becomes a cult. Because I was in Northern Ireland a few years ago, stayed in a tiny little village, and they had a cave which was used for, I think, one scene in Game of Thrones. And every day we saw coachloads of people turning up. They would troop round to the cave, go and have a look round it, and then come back and pile into the local hotel, which was doing a thriving business because, they were getting several coaches a day. And it was a tiny little village that had never been on the map before, but simply because they had a cave. That was their ticket. Okay, Richard Dorbar, let's hear from you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Can you tell me what engagement you have with the National Trust, and to what extent you've pursued these sorts of links?
So we've spoken with the National Trust during the research phase, and that kind of is something that we need to sort of develop. So that conversation needs to kind of be expanded upon. And I think this is really to do with sort of so I think National Trust is absolutely vital to it. I think National Trust is good for filming generally. They tend to deal with filming at a national level. So they tend to not sort of deal with it on a local level so much as they deal with it at a national level. That was the report from our research phase. And I think that we are probably better able to talk to the National Trust as a region sort of, and then talk about all of the locations across the region, because their filming kind of office tends to go through nationally. So when you're able to kind of go, okay, these are all the National Trust properties in Devon, then we are more able to get more sort of time and attention from that national office.
Yeah, I understand that, and that seems logical. But if you approach, for example, Alaronde, for example, and I'm sure you'd find them very amenable, and they could also link with head office in Swindon and sort of help, because those situations and looking over the Exmouth to the river and so on are absolutely stunning, aren't they? And could be used for so many situations, advertising plus period dramas to all kinds of things, really. So I would encourage you to pursue that, because particularly on an international level, to have such beautiful buildings is quite an attraction.
I think National Trust is absolutely vital, and I think Devon's really well served for the properties that we have there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, very good point. And I was thinking of all those stately homes and how many of them get used in various productions. I see Paul has come back again. Paula, just before you come in, because we haven't heard from Councillor Paul Arnott yet, and he's the man with his hands on the money, so we'll hear from Paul first.
Yes, I'm just, that's why I haven't got my screen on, Chair, because there's just sacks of gold on my desk and I'm sifting through them now, power patronage. So very interested to hear about this, and I've just full disclosure, I've met David before and discussed this, as has obviously Sarah too. So I come at this from two angles. So the first one, I'm going to come with the hard-nosed one, the very, very hard-nosed one, which is as somebody who's worked in film and television production for years. And whenever I've been involved in producing or executive producing anything, I know what's being spent on every single day of any production, down to the single cab ride that an actor has had to take home, or the replacement value of a bulb that a spark has dropped on the floor. And by doing that type of cost control, that is in fact the only way that in small and medium scale British films you can get them made, and that discipline applies to television as well. So I'm intolerant of wastage, absolutely, and I would therefore be naturally suspicious, I think perhaps as Ian is too, of something that might seem to need to get itself going to come to the public purse, to a council, for help in launching. So I come to this with a cautious and sceptical attitude. However, if you look at our own experience in the last month, which many members will know, there was a massive Bollywood film that shot in Sidmouth and then moved along the coast to Beer. Now, we can't disclose the amount that was paid to us as a council as a facility fee for the use of the beach in Beer, but I would just say it would cover what we have invested already and what we are planning to invest already. Just to put, let's put it no more sort of directly than that. We own a number of properties ourselves, not least the facilities of the beaches, which are likely to be well-favoured potential locations where we as a council would directly benefit through that negotiation. So those fees negotiated for us would be brilliant. Now our team was amazing doing the facilitating, the Bollywood production company, and it was our events team and it was our street scene team. I went down to location and it was extraordinary to see a full-scale Bollywood film being shot. So the classic British film being shot on Sidmouth seafront, you get a quite small crew and 5 or 6 actors perhaps. This was, I don't know, a crew and cast of about 100 on Beer Beach. It was extraordinary to see. And I've no doubt we can attract things like that more. So to me, we've been underrepresented, as many members have already said, Paula, Nick, whoever else, everybody's said it. We haven't organised ourselves as a county, and that is a lacuna. David and the university have had the wit to pull something together with other partners that makes this offer. For my part, to let David know, I will, in the spirit of Councillor Barlow, be scrutinising your books extremely carefully as we move ahead. I don't want any, no fat there in the office of Screen Devon. I think that's really important. And just to remind you, David, we do, and I'll say it because otherwise Tracy, our CEO, would have to. We have a duty to the public purse. So it's not the old days of, the GLC, well, probably before you were born, frankly, but, just, let's stick 200 grand in that. That seems like a good idea. Those days have gone. But I think in summary, there is value for money in this directly to us as a council. Then all of this, and don't forget the initial money we put in, came from our both culture and tourism funds that we'd done very well to win from central government. So they didn't come from what would be our normal general reserve, from our normal funding. They came in through the economy team. And I think as long as we as a council continue to treat it in that spirit, it needs to wash its face from our point of view. Then I think this could be terrific. I won't then rehearse all the other arguments about the more general positives because, of course, they go without saying. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Paul. And there you go, David. Don't go dropping any light bulbs because Paul will be scrutinising it. Back to you, Paula.
Thank you. Sorry, it's just a small matter. back with the specifics of tourism, in that we seem to be suffering from, or particularly Exmouth is suffering from bad publicity. So, like Ollie said, if you can get a cult film going in Exmouth, we need to raise the reputation of places that are suffering from South West Water's problems. That's all. Thank you.
Well, if we could make it about South West Water's problems, I don't know quite how you do that, but yeah, I shall. I'm mentally working on titles, but no, I won't go there. Okay, so we have a recommendation there as well, or at least we have a funding request. So we'll now turn to Sarah Elgady, who is going to actually put forward those funding requests, and then we can take a vote on that. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. I think it's all outlined in the report, and so it's really for the forum to make a decision whether we take these two funding requests to Cabinet to formally agree it. With a little bit more detail, I'm happy to meet with Maya and discuss KPIs and so on and flesh that side out. But I think you've had an opportunity to ask questions to both Maya and David, and both seem like really incredible initiatives that we should be supporting. So over to the forum.
Thank you. And Chief Executive is here, and thank you for coming, Tracy. So you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to say how positive it is to be looking at arts and culture and be an organisation and a local authority that is absolutely committed to delivering these services. I think from my point of view, it's really great to hear the bids, and it's great to be working in partnership. But I am going to echo what Charlie started and what Paul finished, which is very much around the fact that we do need to ensure that the monitoring and the outcomes are absolutely clearly highlighted for us as a local authority. So what do we get for the funding? How do we decide who to share what filming with? Will they provide the backdrop for us? Will they manage the inquiries? Will they deal with the filming, handling the letters, etc., etc.? So just that piece of work around how does this sit around monitoring and KPIs, I think is really important for us.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, well, Councillor Barlow. Oh, no. You've put your hand down.
I'll start again. I'm sure most people were very happy that I was muted. Taking on what's just been said, etc. So how are we going to, as a council, put these KPIs in place? You can't let, no disrespect to David or anything, to set his own KPIs. Who is going to be responsible for that? Is that going to be you? Is that going to be Sarah? Or is that going to be Tracy? I don't know, but we do need to have something put in there so that it is a clearly set targets, not wishy-washy. No disrespect again, but the lovely reports we've had, it's easy to write words. What we need is actions. As we've said before, we can keep doing consultation after consultation and looking for the perfect thing. What we need is progress. So can we just say who is going to set the KPIs, please?
Okay, I don't know if David wants to answer that one. I mean, to me, it would probably be a question of negotiation. I don't think we can set KPIs because we don't know what Screen Devon's ambitions are. Well, we do, but we don't necessarily know what success is going to look like for them. But do you want to say a bit more about that, David?
Yeah, I would see it as a discussion with all of the different local authorities to a certain extent, and my preferred kind of, so in establishing, we invited all local authorities and other stakeholders in the region to discuss actually what are KPIs that can be agreed that will work for all parties. So we kind of have been working in both proposing KPIs, but also opening the question as to what actually works for different organizations. What would be really useful from my point of view is that who the people that I should be most clearly speaking with. What I think would be most valuable is if we have a discussion as to what's going to be most useful in terms of KPIs, and then we discuss about what they are. I mean, the only sort of complication from my point of view is just we need to serve, I think for us to work, it's a scale question. We need to work for the benefit of everybody in Devon. I think it's vital that we serve the interests of the people in East Devon. But we need something that kind of like is a set of KPIs that we're working towards that works across the different boundaries. So, you know, that's kind of the only caveat. So I think that my hope would be, or this establishment that we've kind of set up, is to invite people via probably the local authority advisory board would be my preference, as a way of sort of getting all the different local authorities to come in, being really clear about what they need to see, and for us to then discuss and work out exactly how we're going to track it. I think sort of one of the things that Screen Devon should be doing is improving the data. So, to begin with, I think that we can't sort of, what we need is the baseline data. That's where we need to start from, which we don't sort of clearly have. One of the things that you see in terms of like the National Screen Agency, one of the challenges around Devon is they say the data out of Devon is really bad. And one of the reasons why they want to see a Screen Devon is to improve data. So I'm really welcome the question and the clarity around who the right people to speak to are, is music to my ears, because it's establishing the baseline data and then tracking it is what also generates research income potentially, which I think is an opportunity area for Screen Devon. So I really welcome the question. I think it's a dialogue. I think it's a negotiation. And I think from Screen Devon's perspective, it just needs to be something that can benefit all the people of Devon. So that would be my answer, but I really welcome the question. I want more data.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. You've got to know where you're starting from to know where you've got to, don't you? So yeah, that's very well put. Councillor Arnott.
Thanks, Ollie. Yes, and to a certain extent, I should probably leave this question, I suspect, to Tracy. But so in the end, David, it comes down to the sort of the synchronizing of this, you know, along a sort of longitudinal thing. So you will have had some money from us already, so that's great. And I suppose I would hope that already there's some thinking being done on the reporting back to councils about how it's going, you know, what their expectations may be financially and so forth. I think probably what would be wise, and again, I really do defer to Tracy on this, but perhaps before this comes to Cabinet for approval, and then of course it has to come to Council next as well, is that somehow we just do a little bit of work on that between our officers and you, just to firm that, because what you've done just now was a fantastic pitch. So that's great, and that seems to have landed very well. I think we're probably going to need to understand the detail a little bit more around the nuts and bolts on the financials. Again, as I said, you know, sort of be boring as a public authority. That would be in everybody's advantage, perhaps, before we put it for approval to Cabinet. And I don't know quite what date that would be either, but I should leave that to Tracy or Andy or whoever, or Sarah indeed, all of whom have got hands up. Thanks, Ollie.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Councillor Nick Hook, wait, Nick.
Chair, would you mind if I came after the officers, please? I think Sarah Algadi wants to say something about this, please.
Okay, let's hear from Sarah first, because it's your report, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes, just to reassure you that the initial £10,000, which was through the Sustainable Tourism Shared Prosperity Fund programme and the Shared Prosperity Fund Cultural programme, what did have metrics in place that were specific to SBF. So that was part of the grant funding agreement, which was done in collaboration with the economic development team. Going forward, depending on where we source that £10,000, if we choose to do that, it depends where that pot is linked to. If it's still linked to Shared Prosperity Fund, there will be very specific metrics that we'll continue to need to report on. And of course, we also want to be linking it to the East Devon Cultural Strategy, which has multiple goals. But in terms of those metrics, I absolutely agree that we need to flesh those out, and it will involve another meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, Tracy Hendren, see you again.
Thank you, Chair. I apologise, I might have some noise in the background going on, so I'm going to make it very quick. I'm just agreeing really with Paul and with Sarah. Ultimately, we need to be in a position where we have agreed objectives and KPIs with David and with officers, and then officers will be responsible for monitoring them and reporting back to the forum. So if we can get that agreed before it goes to Cabinet, then that would make more sense if the decision is to move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's very important, isn't it? That we know how success is going to be measured before we get there. Councillor Nick Hookway. Oh, did you want to hear from Andy first, Nick?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just in danger of reiterating, I think, what's just been said twice already. But just to say, I think probably the key decision for us is around where the funding is going to come from. As Sarah said, if it's from the extension to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund that was confirmed in the recent budget, that would bring its own reporting requirements as well. And we need to just be mindful about how kind of our if you like, KPIs, East Devon specific KPIs nest within the kind of wider Devon programme. But I'm sure that could be absolutely explicit within the Cabinet paper.
Okay, thank you. Okay, over to you, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you, Ollie. Yes, well, thank you very much indeed for officers for their input, which I think is absolutely essential. Clearly we need to wrap up things like KPIs and performance management and so on. That's very important. But coming back to the recommendation and what's on the report, I think it's really important to point out a couple of things. Firstly, there are 8 reasons for the recommendation there. They are very well put and I think are important. Culture sometimes is a very difficult thing to measure. We've been having this debate about how you measure how many people use a particular service of culture and so on. And you do have to look at the bigger picture. That's my job. Okay, and officers are going to look at the nitty-gritty and so on. I would also point out that this particular recommendation does hit 2 of the 4 council plans that have outstanding homes and communities and outstanding economic growth, productivity and prosperity. And I think it's that one that this, particularly the Screen Devon proposal, really does come home. And I think we have to be politically very brave here. Undoubtedly, people will say, well, I don't know about that. But that's very much a Devon thing. People are very hesitant to move forward and take something that is new. If you look at what's happened, Northern Ireland is a very good example of what they achieved is pretty phenomenal. We do really need to go out and sell ourselves. And that sometimes is quite a challenge, I think, for those of us who are a quiet and mild nature. So I think this is important. I think we should do that. And therefore, Chair, I would like to recommend the proposals, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So you're making a recommendation there, right? Thank you, that we support the 2 funding requests and that these are put forward to Cabinet for consideration and a final decision. And Sarah, I'm assuming you'll be writing the report that will go to Cabinet and that will state the KPIs. There are actually, yeah, there are some good goals there already, as Nick has pointed out in the report. And I think Nick made an interesting point earlier, and it is one of the things you have to consider when writing KPIs. As an ex-teacher, I'm very aware that what gets measured is what can be measured, and what doesn't get measured is what can't be measured. And it's very difficult to measure the thrill people have got, or the excitement something has generated, and those are often where the anecdotal bits need to come in. So I think, especially with the arts, we have to be careful that we don't get too hard-headed about it. Oh, I see Tracy has to go. Thank you, Tracy, for your input there. That was really helpful. Yeah, we need to make sure that we don't miss out what actually can't be measured. So we need to have some way of kind of being aware, at least, of the soft outcomes, as you might call them. Councillor Barlow, are you going to second the requests for funding?
I'm not there. I'm going to leave that to someone much more educated in the arts than me. I was just going to say, who is the East Devon representative that sits on the board? And obviously they have a say in what goes on, so that's an important place. So who is that? Yeah, and then KPIs are important. I think we need target dates for certain things, when this will be actually launched, as I said. Talk about, and how much are the other councils putting in? You know, we are 12.5% of the population of Devon. We are one of 11 councils. So has everyone else put in £10,000 or similar?
Okay, I'll let David answer that one.
Who's the East Devon resident? That would be Rebecca Ramsden. She runs the Fixed Stars.
Sorry, not resident, councillor. So obviously this is a council thing. Sorry,
no, maybe I misunderstood the question.
So on your board, you have representatives from the various councils.
So we have, the route. So we've had long discussions about how the different local authorities wanted to be involved in the structure and governance of Screen Devon. So as I say, it is absolutely a partnership. And the message we were receiving is that that they were not. It was not a straightforward thing for local authorities to decide what position they wanted to take. The solution is that essentially the company has a board of directors, but it serves the interests of the members. The solution for ensuring that there is representation is the chair of the local authority advisory board is the member that's the 4 members that the company is serving. And that local authority advisory board can accept all of the different local authorities onto it, and funding members elect the chair, who then represents all the local authorities' interests as the member, and the company serves the members, and the directors basically ensure that the members' interests are being looked after. So that was our solution, and it came out of, initially I was assuming that there might be more interest, or it might be simpler to just sort of have a more direct kind of relationship with the board of directors, but out of conversations with everyone, it was the solution that came out that worked better.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Ian? I'm not totally clear.
I think it answers the question that there isn't a board that actually, does it represent us? I don't know. I don't think it does, because I don't know who from East Devon is on there. Who is the person from our council that is on there, checking our money is being wisely spent? It doesn't seem like you've set that up quite yet. So maybe that's yet to come. Maybe that's one of the targets we could have, that we do actually get the board that you say is there set up running, so that we can have some sort of oversight.
Well, if you want, I mean, the obvious person is that it would come to me as portfolio holder. But initially it would go to Sarah El-Gadi, would be the first port of contact, and then she would report to me, or to Cabinet if necessary. But it would come to me as portfolio holder.
Thank you, Nick. Councillor Arnott's come back in, so maybe you've got some answers.
Yeah, hi, Ollie again. So I don't think this has been sorted out yet. There is, so David, I don't quite understand this. There's like an advisory board, but there is also for the corporate entity a board of directors, isn't there? That's correct.
That's correct.
So I can't really say anything about this, but it could be that we have as East Devon representation on that, but that at the moment is a matter of negotiation, which I think has to be confidential. But again, I suggest this comes out in the wash in the further discussions that go on. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right. Councillor Hookway has proposed acceptance of the recommendation and that it goes forward to Cabinet. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Fernley, I was looking at you. I thought you might put your hand up. Do you want to say anything about it? No. That is recommended that it goes forward to Cabinet. These are relatively, in the grand scheme of things, relatively small sums of money. But even so, we do want to make sure that we do get value for money out of those. If they do pay off, they could repay us many times over. I'm quite sure that I was very excited reading your report, David. I like the idea of lots of film crews coming down and nurturing local talent. I think that's a fantastic idea. So we'll go to a vote. Alethea, are you going to do that?
Yep. So I'm wondering whether it's easy for you to, yep. So I don't know, if you look on the react button at the bottom at Zoom, you can do a green tick or a red cross. So if you'd all like to vote now. So Chair, I'm only seeing green ticks, so that's carried.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need to say any against, do we? Because
no, there are no against.
Great. Okay. So that is carried, and we can now move on to our next speaker, which is Joe Cairns from Museum Development Southwest.
Hi everyone, can you see my slides? They should be shared.
We can. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can see the whole presentation. Did you want to?
Yeah, I'm just trying. There we go. It should.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So hi everyone, I'm Jo Cairns, the Museum Development Officer covering Devon Museums for Museum Development Southwest. I'm also the Museum and Heritage Champion for AIST. But I'm here to talk about the work that I and Museum Development Southwest do with the museums in East Devon. So I thought I'd start by giving you some background on the Southwest region's museums, and these statistics are provided by our annual museum survey. It's just come out a couple of weeks ago, so the statistics are hot off the press. So 78% of our museums are independent charities in the Southwest, and that's compared to 67% nationally. 47% of them are classed as micro, so that means that they have fewer than 10,000 visitors annually, and that's compared to 42% nationally. Our visit numbers are 2% down in the Southwest on 2019 to 20, so pre-pandemic levels, and that's compared to 8% nationally. 39% of our museums are wholly volunteer run, and that is compared to 33% nationally. We have 7 volunteers to every 1 paid member of staff in the Southwest, compared to 5 volunteers to 1 paid member of staff nationally. And 32% of our museums reported an annual turnover of less than £25,000 in 2022 to 23. So These statistics might look slightly different than those we reported at the last forum meeting, and this is because we now include Hampshire, Solent and the Isle of Wight in our museum development southwest area as defined by Arts Council. So there was a move to change the number of regions that there were covering museum development from 9 to 5. So in effect, the southwest has got larger. So for those of you who may be new to the East Devon Arts and Culture Forum, I thought I'd give a quick intro to Museum Development Southwest. We're a team of museum and heritage development specialists working with the museum and heritage sector in the Southwest to effect positive lasting change and deliver public value. Together, we create opportunities which build confidence and skills, encourage innovation and celebrate our heritage and culture. We're an Arts Council England funded investment principles support organisation, and we are one of the 5 museum development providers across England that I mentioned. The others are London, Midlands, North and South East. So the museums in East Devon that receive support from us are Allhallows Museum in Honiton, Sidmouth Museum, Fairlinch Museum and Arts Centre in Budleigh Salterton, and Axminster Heritage Centre. So these 4 are all accredited museums, and as such we receive funding from Arts Council England to support them. However, there are also 5 other museum and heritage organisations that are not yet accredited in East Devon, which we're able to support thanks to the funding from East Devon District Council. So these are Exmouth Museum, Seaton Museum, Ottery St Mary Heritage Museum and Wimple Heritage Centre, and the Southwest Airfield Heritage Trust. So this funding allows us to include these museums in development opportunities, for example, Exmouth Museum's inclusion in our Volunteering Fit for the Future programme. That's not to say that there aren't other heritage organisations in East Devon, it's just those are the ones that are actively engaging with us at the moment, and I'd be very happy to work with others if they come forward to work with us. So over the past 18 months, we've worked in partnership with East Devon District Council to deliver development opportunities using funding provided by you through the Shared Prosperity Fund. So far in 2024 to 25, we've worked with Sarah and ACE to offer the Photographic Collections project and training sessions on caring for and displaying costume and an introduction to accreditation. I've also worked with Sarah to develop the grant application to Arts Council for our Wild and Changing Estuaries project, which we hope will support 3 museums across East Devon to digitise and develop their collections and displays. So we really hope that that one will be successful, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed for the application. So your investment of £3,000 per annum directly targets museums that are accredited and those working towards accreditation in East Devon to access our full range of support services. Your investment forms part of a local network of investment from other local authorities in Devon, which amplifies the core services provided by Museum Development Southwest and funded by Arts Council England. Each year we secure additional development opportunities for museums through grants and contract income to improve services for audiences and local communities. This local authority investment is essential in delivering effective, tailored services that meets the needs of museums in East Devon and the wider region. So over the last 6 months, you have invested £1,500 into our programme, which has generated £2,342 worth of direct museum development support, as well as £330 worth of museum skills training. We have just changed our reporting system on our work, so unfortunately I don't have the data for our specialist officer support for East Devon. However, hopefully at the next meeting we'll be able to provide that for you. So some highlights from East Devon. Since the last meeting, Axminster have now completed this project on the conservation and display of the Thomas Whitty rug, which was enabled by our On Display grant. We're hoping that they will apply for further funding through us in our grants programme next year. We do tend to find that if museums apply for one lot of funding from us, it really encourages them to apply again, or gives them confidence to apply to larger funding pots from other funders. So also Exmouth Museum have completed their participation in our Volunteering Fit for the Future programme. They're now working on the actions and recommendations from the project with continuing support when required from Eleanor Moore, our Sustainable Volunteering Specialist. And I do know Ellen has been really pleased with the work they've done, and she's been using them as a case study for the new cohort of museums who are working on this year's Volunteering Fit for the Future programme. And finally, accreditation support has been a strong theme over the last 6 months in East Devon, probably as a result of the accreditation training session which was held. Wimple Heritage, Exmouth Museum and Seaton Museum have all received advice about readiness to submit their eligibility for accreditation, with Wimple and Exmouth Museum also receiving governance advice. I'm currently working with Wimple Heritage to submit an application to Arts Council for funding support with legal fees to change their governance in readiness for accreditation and to more adequately protect the organisation. East Devon Museums Group, which is facilitated by me, held meetings in May and September this year, which enabled networking opportunities and the sharing of ideas and challenges. Our next meeting is at the end of November, and it promises to include a session on temperature and humidity and how they affect your collections. And this will be from our conservation specialist, Helena. And we're also hoping to have a networking Christmas lunch. So we're looking forward to that. And finally, I just wanted to say, if you'd like to find out more about the work that we do, please take a look at our prospectus for this year and our annual review. Thanks very much. Yeah, do feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you, Jo. I've just turned my camera off for a moment. Yes, I see some hands up already. Councillor Peter Faithful, we haven't heard from you yet, Peter, so over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't notice anything about Ottery Museum. Are they going down any road of accreditation or anything like that? Can you tell me?
Yes, I have been talking to Ottery about accreditation, and I think they are getting things ready to start that process. They're aware of what they need to do to begin, so I'm just sort of waiting in the wings for them to submit their eligibility questionnaire, and then once they do that, they'll be classed as working towards accreditation. And that brings with it the funding opportunities, grant opportunities and training, but it also means that I will prioritise my time to support them once they're working towards. So yeah, hopefully they will be doing that soon.
Can I come back? Is it just museums, or do you go beyond just museums? Like, I mean, we've got a thing, it was last night, it was the tar barrels. It's a sort of heritage thing, but it's not in a building as itself.
Our remit's really for museum and heritage organisations that hold collections. So that is the key. They have to sort of encompass the definition of a museum as defined by the Museums Association. So part of that is that they must hold collections and be open to the public. So if they don't fit that remit, I'm not able to support really through the funding from Arts Council, but I'm happy to answer any questions they might have if they're looking to start up a museum or start collecting.
Okay, thank you. I was pleased to see you featured Exmouth Museum quite a lot. I was talking to a friend of mine who was very involved in setting that up, and that was a very dedicated group of volunteers who really made that happen. So many didn't, but he told me they'd had a fantastic summer and a huge increase in visitors coming through the doors. So yeah, they've had a very good year.
They're doing really well, actually, I would say. Yeah, we're really pleased with them, and I am expecting an eligibility questionnaire from them soon as well. So I'll be working with them really closely to start accreditation.
Great, that's really good news. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. several things. First of all, thank you very much from Sidmouth. They do fully appreciate the skills that you bring that they don't have. I know it's been mentioned to me. I think the weather's helped this year with museums. Might be decimating for the beach, etc., but the tourism actually is down in the area, and yet you're saying you're only 1 or 2% down. So I think that should be a real positive, and probably to do with, as I say, the bad weather. And lastly, you're asking other people to be accredited, which is great. Do you get more money then the more museums we've got from the Arts Council, or does that mean basically the pot needs to be split more ways?
I don't think we do, but that would probably be a question for Vic, our programme manager, who sort of deals with the relationship with Arts Council. Arts Council's funding is very stretched as well, so I think that we just have to spread ourselves more thinly, I suppose. I'm always happy when a museum starts on the process of accreditation, because it's a really positive thing, and happy to support them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nick Hookway. Nick.
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you very much indeed. Sorry, thank you very much indeed to Jo for her report, which is very informative. I absolutely support your comments, Chair, about Exmouth Museum. That's very positive news. I know they do a lot of good work with their memory boxes for care homes and so on. But I just wanted to sort of have a look and just sort of raise another issue. I was very pleased to see, if I can find it on the screen again. You talked about the our Wild and Changing Estuaries project, which I believe centres around the River Exe as well. And I think that's a very good example of how work that we do within our sector helps to get across a message that other people may not always get. And that is because it links in with South West Water. Exmouth has had a terrible time with South West Water over the last year. And they are absolutely the pantomime villain at the moment. And to get across this message that we are doing work and someone is actually caring about and giving a positive message about the River Exe and how it changes and what it needs is, I think, a really important message. And I wish that project every success. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it'll be a great project. It's really Sarah's project, but I've been supporting on that. So yeah, fingers crossed that we get a positive outcome from Arts Council.
Yes, absolutely. Please keep me updated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments for Jo? Okay, thank you. Oh, Councillor Fernley, coming forward.
Sorry, just a quickie about Southwest Airfield Heritage Trust. I know they've had a pretty good year as well. My dad volunteers there and creates all sorts of funny Second World War stuff that he's rebuilt. So if anyone fancies going along there and seeing something about Band of Brothers, then I know that's doing pretty good too for such a tiny little space.
Right, sounds like it might be a location for a film. Okay, so if we've got no more comments on that, I'll just thank you, Jo. It's always good to hear, the work you're doing with museums and how they're developing. It always seems to be positive, which is, we need a lot of that at the moment. Okay, we'll move on to Exmouth Festival then. Jess and Zoe. Going to do a double act and tell us about how they made the festival more sustainable, and certainly I was slightly involved in that.
Right.
So,
Okay, that one, aren't we?
tell us more.
Hi, right. I've just got to right. How do I share? Sorry, just. Did we get screen sharing permission at the beginning? I thought you set us up with screen sharing, but it's not.
Yeah, so your co-host in the middle at the bottom, you should have an arrow, green arrow pointing upwards saying share.
Oh, there. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
That one. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah, that's great. We've got that.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. I think we'll have to leave that there. Yeah. So, just to introduce to those who don't know, I'm Jess McGill. I'm the Arts Manager at Exmouth Town Council. And this is Zoe Cooper, who is the Climate and Ecological Emergency Resilience Officer. See, I got that out.
You got that right. Well done.
And we worked together this year on a project for Exmouth Festival. So Exmouth Festival is, for those who don't know, a free to access arts festival, which has been running since 1997 in various guises. It sort of changes and evolves over time. And it's largely funded by Exmouth Town Council and the Arts Council, with additional occasional discretionary funding and sponsorship from other bodies. It runs over 3 sites and features music, circus, theatre, science, arts and crafts, and various other delights. So this year we did a project with, in collaboration with East Devon District Council, to decarbonise the Exmouth Festival, to reduce the carbon footprint, and to share our learnings and kind of findings with others in the cultural bodies of East Devon. So this has taken the form of presentations, one of which is today, and we're doing one to the Tourism Network. We've done one to the Green Team, and what was the first one?
Sustainable South Hams.
Sustainable South Hams. And also we've created a toolkit which will be shared through the ACE network. Can you? Yeah. You need to scroll down on the, there we go. Oh, you're on the wrong screen now. I've got through, it's very complicated. Here we go.
Okay.
There we go.
So what we are going to whiz through today, because we're conscious of time, is our approach to making the festival more sustainable, a little bit on the feedback and measurement that we put in place, some very top level data that we'll share with you, and then we won't go into explaining and describing the toolkit because it is quite lengthy, but we can give you an overview of what's contained in the toolkit, because that is our biggest output, and then if there's time we'll take some questions.
So our approach with working with Southwest Energy and Environmental Group, we created a spreadsheet which helps to measure the carbon footprint of an event. And we had some top line data from 2023, which we would put in. We didn't measure as many things as we did this year. So the data set was less complete, but we used that as a basis for taking some steps to reduce the carbon footprint. We booked a lot more local acts and infrastructure than in previous years, which reduced the travel carbon. We promoted sustainable travel to the event for all performers and attendees. We programmed acts and activities that also reflected the ethos of the event. We reduced waste through the use of reusable cups and no single-use plastics. We had better bin signage to improve recycling waste and recycled food for the first time. We brought in some compost loos instead of chemical toilets. And we encouraged traders to take action on carbon and share what they were doing to reduce waste.
And then Tim, in terms of the engagement before the festival, we had a huge amount of pre-event participation. So we reached out to the traders, we reached out to the performers and crew, and we also pulled together an Exmouth Green team of volunteers. So we currently have more than 20 people in our Green team of volunteers now that were absolutely essential for the success of the festival. So a lot of work happened beforehand, and then during the festival we had dedicated stalls which kind of promoted the environmentally friendly activities that the council, Exmouth Town Council, has been involved in for the last year, and we also got people involved in various activities during the festival. So they got involved in environmental themes, and then we had lots of activities around earth and marine science down at Sideshore and how to protect the natural world.
So this is some examples of the kinds of activities we had going on at the festival. In the top left, this was a walkabout theatre group called the Bee Cart, who talked about the importance of pollinators by demonstrating a lady being a flower being pollinated there. On the top right is the beach theatre performance by Four of Swords, who, excuse me, who retold the legend of the Cyclops, but with a marine pollution theme. We had a plastic-free market, which you can see the plastic-free Exmouth stall there in the bottom left. The middle is Sideshore audiences on Earth Day, and the bottom right is one of our traders who we worked with on telling the story of what they were doing to be more sustainable.
And in terms of our kind of dedicated actions, we had a big eco gazebo in Manor Gardens where we're kind of showcasing our activities around restoring nature, around our plant-based food initiatives, and also around our waste initiatives. So we're promoting our Exmouth Cup, but also reusable nappies and period products. And we were also, on the sunny day, which was the Sunday, we had a clothes swap as well. We were encouraging people to either swap clothes for making a green pledge, and you can see one of our councillors hanging a green pledge on the tree there. And we're also passing around lots of tasty plant-based snacks. We also had in the Strand an active travel hub. So we're trying to promote active travel in Exmouth, getting people back on their bikes and ditching the car to travel around in a more healthy way. And we were giving away Shell medals to anyone who'd come to the festival on foot or by bicycle.
We did do a lot of surveying of our audience, and one of the questions we asked was what people had experienced while they were at the festival. 42% said they had experienced something to do with the environment or sustainability. So that message being spread, really disseminated through the whole festival, really landed with people, and they engaged with it.
And I think that's kind of an important point to make, really, that we could take a lot of sustainable actions, which we did with bin toppers and recycling food waste and so on. So we were sort of seen to be doing what we could to be more sustainable. But in terms of the marketing and the messaging, that impact is also massive. So to make sure that at every sort of touch point, there was something about sustainability, whether that was an overt message, whether it was a compost toilets, or whether it was an activity or a performance, we felt that on some level, everybody at the festival was coming in touch with how to tread more lightly, which was our way of sort of saying, have a think about your carbon footprint, but in a much more sort of accessible way.
So the communications were really important. We created some custom graphics for sharing on socials with messages such as tread lightly at Exmouth Festival, travel green to the event. We made sure we shared information on both the app and the website about what we were doing to make the festival greener, and also what participants and attendees could also do to contribute to that. We put the information in press releases to share with local media to get coverage, and we also sent it out in email newsletters, and talked about it in radio interviews and any PR that we were doing for the event. This is some examples of the communications that we put out. The top left is what was on the website, and then some images on the right.
We also worked with our traders in advance of the event to make a checklist that they could display on their stall. So the checklist was things that they were doing to reduce their carbon footprint. So things like they're supplying plant-based food, or they're moving plant-based food to the top of their menu. We also worked with traders and artists in advance to get them to consider their travel footprint. We did try and book people locally, but we wanted to see exactly how far they'd come and what sort of vehicle they'd taken. And this all went into our spreadsheet. And then we encouraged these groups to share their results on social media so that we could really amplify that sustainability message. We put notices in the compost loos to explain why they were better for the environment. And we also gave our compares sort of very short scripts or sentences that they could call out to explain what we were doing and where to go to find out more. And these are just a few of the signs that we have we made during the festival. They weren't Exmouth Festival branded because we wanted some of the traders to take them home and reuse them. And these are going to be available in our template toolkit, along with a ton of other stuff. But these are all available to download should anyone want to use them.
So as I said, we did surveys. We collected 357 paper surveys. This enabled us to collect some travel data, which then fed into the carbon footprint calculator so that we were able to calculate the travel footprint of the event. And also we recorded our energy and waste data as well. This is just some feedback that we had from people at the event, and nice positive responses to all the actions and themes of the event.
It's interesting that some people actually thought it was a sustainability event. I think especially people that spent a lot of time down at Sideshore, they felt that the event was geared towards sustainability, which is fantastic. And then just in terms of some of the data, so from last year to this year, obviously we measured a lot more and had a lot more accurate data. We reduced our overall carbon footprint by 5%, and we actually reduced the travel footprint by 10%. So we were quite pleased, because generally when you start to measure more and put more data in, your carbon footprint tends to go down. So we were quite pleased that
you mean?
Oh yeah, up. Yeah, sorry. Up. So we were quite pleased that it had gone the right way, and we were really delighted that the surveys worked beautifully. We actually hired people to go out and do the surveying during the festival, so we were able to get that statistic of 42% said they had experienced environmental sustainability during the event.
So a quick overview of the toolkit. We'll show you through here. So this is an example of the there are 6 tabs where you can input data to do with travel, waste, energy, etc., and then it creates these lovely results and graphs for you. So this is the kind of results that you get just by inputting the data, and it allows you to compare your event to previous years or to other events if you have that data. So we've got a sustainable event planning document, which basically gives lots of prompt points, really, of different areas to think about, steps you can take, and so on. And a part about messaging, because we felt that was such a crucial part of what we did, that we've also got a lot of prompts to think about how are you telling this story. Who else can you involve in telling this story? Your traders, the artists, the compares, and so on. And that's all part of that. We've shown you these, they'll be part of the toolkit as well, so that people can use those for their own events. And is that it? Yeah, there we go. That's it. So obviously the idea of developing the toolkit is, hang on, let me just get that back. Zoe, can you fix it? The idea of developing the toolkit is that measuring the carbon footprint of an event is quite daunting. Event producers are not necessarily trained in this kind of analysis and don't necessarily have the tools. They don't always know what steps to take. Oh yeah, it's that, I think, isn't it? Sorry, we've somehow managed to lose the screen. There we go. Or what impact, if they take steps, those steps might have. Whereas the carbon calculator that was developed allows you to scenario test certain things. If we manage to reduce travel carbon by this much, what effect does that have on our overall footprint? So the aim is to help event producers measure and reduce their carbon footprint, and to think about ways to communicate that with their suppliers, their performers, their traders, their audiences. The calculator breaks down the different categories of carbon contribution of an event to make it clear and understandable for people to take those steps, and to also know what data is needed in order to measure and measure the future development. Right, any questions?
Okay, can you stop screen sharing, Jess, and then I can...
Oh no, that's leaving, no.
It's usually at the top of the screen that something says stop sharing.
Oh yeah, sorry.
we've got 3 screens. It's very confusing.
There we go.
Is that too many screens? We're only good with one.
Okay, we've got questions already. Yeah, I'll just say the Cycle Hub was very good actually, and they were offering free bike checks as well, which my wife took advantage of, which revealed that her front wheel was not actually attached to the rest of the bike. So
wow.
Yes.
Glad that one got caught. Yep.
Yeah, it involved a trip to the local bike shop. Yeah, the displays by the traders I thought were very effective as well. So each stall, we could have done with a photo of one of those, just showing what they'd kind of ticked to show how they were reducing their carbon footprint. And yeah, I should admit that I did actually play at the festival, and my opposite number, Dave, who I play with, before the event, I got a panicked phone call from them saying that they want to know how I'm going to travel there. And I said, well, just tell them you're going to walk over, Dave, because that's what he was going to do, because he lives about 5 minutes walk away. And that's all right then.
Oh dear, I didn't mean my email to sound threatening.
No, but because it was the wettest time, the wettest day, I think I went in on the bus. But neither of us used a car, so our carbon footprint was
very good.
So we have questions. Councillor Ian Barlow again.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you very much for this. I have passed it on to several of the Sidmouth festivals already, and the Town Council. I think it's brilliant, and it saves us trying to invent something you've already done. So well done.
Thank you.
Composting toilets. Are
Yes.
they vastly more expensive than the normal ones or not?
They are at the moment. I think that will change because the demand for them is increasing. So I think there will be more suppliers coming on the market and more local. I couldn't find someone more local than Somerset. So it was a bit of a one to weigh up. Do we get chemical toilets from more locally, or composting toilets from further away? But because of the message that it sends out and the kind of education factor, we decided to go with those. But yeah, I think that will hopefully change the cost of them.
Thank you very much. We have a lack of toilets in Sidmouth lately, so we will need to be doing something. Cheers.
Always manages to get that one in, doesn't he? Yeah, the composting toilets were very impressive actually, but they were they sort of wooden, so they looked great, but I imagine they are a bit more difficult to transport, and perhaps not local companies doing them yet, but as you say, I'm sure that will grow. Councillor Nick Hookway. Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just really as brief as I possibly can. Thanks to Jess and Zoe for their presentation. Exmouth Festival is rapidly developing a character of its own, which is most welcome. I thought the work they've done on sustainability is inspirational. It's a very comprehensive approach. I think that's clearly been picked up by other towns, according to Councillor Barlow. That's really good. And also, it is particularly useful that it's a good example of how data-driven things can be and how we need to get that way. Excuse me, I'll just have to take this phone call. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Yeah, that's a good point about the data. Paula, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, I think fabulous what Exmouth Town Council is doing generally on the green agenda. It's great that you managed to do so much in this festival, and I'll certainly be sharing the toolkit with the parish council for we don't have anything as grand as festival, but we do have several fun days, so that could certainly be very useful for that. Yeah, brilliant. Like, I echo what's been said before, fantastic event. Glad everybody felt that it was a sustainability event. The more we can do this across our region, the better. So thank you very much. Wholeheartedly support. Thank you.
Yeah, you should clarify that, yeah, it is the toolkit can be used. It's not just for festivals. You know, there are things there that are pertinent to right across lots of different kinds of events. Obviously, some parts of it will be more relevant than others, but yeah, there's definitely prompts and steps there that anyone can take.
Can you share your composting toilet information as well, please, of who you used? If you recommend.
There's a list of resources in the toolkit, and the ones we used were called Compost, which they are listed in there. So yeah,
brilliant. Thank you.
You get it all here, don't you? You get high-level discussions about, you know, the film companies,
film industry
coming to, down to.
We like to bring it down to the compost.
Composting toilet. I'll just say, Paula, all you need is a couple of fantastic staff, you know.
Thanks, Ollie.
Can't speak highly enough of them. But I am biased.
Nice.
Charlie.
Thanks, Chair. No, I agree with everything everyone said before. Fantastic piece of work. And I think the challenge for us is how we scale this up. And it's brilliant that you've been the pathfinders and shown the value for it, and we mustn't lose momentum with this work, because I do think it's absolutely critical that we do, you know, create the awareness and the opportunity. And it's interesting is that having had that presentation from David with Screen Devon, if we're looking to bring in production companies, etc., that's, I'm not going to say, but potentially could increase our emissions, our carbon footprint. So I think part of our discussion is, you know, how we can factor in the work that you've been doing to these new areas, which are great for our local economy, etc. But we also must be very mindful of the footprint that it's creating for us, because we have to look to mitigate that. So lots of really interesting discussion points here, which I'm conscious of the time, but I'd love to sort of pick up, you know, after the meeting and, you know, carry on this discussion with you and everyone, you know, within this forum where the opportunity presents itself. So it's good to hear that Ian's passed that on to the Folk Festival, and I guess the Blues and Jazz Festival as well. We've got Budley Literary Festival. We've got a whole host of festivals across East Devon that presents opportunities. So fantastic work and great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. Good point. Yes, and there's a lot of interest in this in the arts, actually, in how you cut your carbon footprint, isn't there? And a lot of touring bands are very conscious of this, that they're very carbon heavy. I think some high profile names are looking how they can kind of cut the emissions that they're responsible for. Okay, any more questions? So thanks so much, Jess and Zoe. That's really exciting and great to know that, you know, you've developed this toolkit that can be used by other events as well. That's great. Okay, I think we're on to agenda item 10. We're getting there, folks. This is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund Year 2 Cultural Programme, and we have a report from Sarah Elgady.
Thank you. I'm just trying to share my screen, but it says host disabled participants screen sharing.
Right, we need to enable you.
Yeah, we just need to make you co-host. I've made you co-host now, Sarah.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Can everyone see that?
Yep, that's coming up.
Yeah. And is it full screen?
No.
Okay, hopefully it will be shortly. There we go. Thank you. So I'm cultural producer, and I wanted to give you an update on year 2 of the SPF cultural programme, which ran from April last year, 2023, to March this year, 2024. I'll keep it brief. There's a much more detailed report on the agenda, but I'll just share the highlights. So our budget was 35,000, and we focused on 2 areas, which was the development of the ACE network and launching the Creative East Devon Fund. As you know, we launched our website last July, and we've seen significant growth in membership, starting with around 70 members when we launched, and by the end of year 2, 150 members, and now we're just under 200 members across East Devon in various different specialisms. We've also been busy recruiting our ACE champions who work in different specialised areas, and it's super important that there's a shared ownership of the ACE network. So they co-chair our meetings, they help set the agenda, share their knowledge and so on. This year I've recruited 2 more champions, a festivals champion who is the chair of Budleigh Literature Festival, Sue Briggs, and also an inclusion champion, Maggie Irving, who amazingly is the only woman in the world to have a PhD in clowning, which is quite fun. So these are our champions. We've continued to host 3 network meetings a year. So we've held it at THG, Manor Pavilion Theatre, and our next meeting will be at Poltermore House in February. So in terms of the training that we've continued to offer, we delivered 12 different training sessions in year 2. These were in digital marketing, volunteer recruitment and retention, making a living as an artist, carbon literacy, fundraising, collections management for museums, governance, public speaking, mentoring, and bid writing. In total, 134 individuals have benefited from free ACE training in year 2. And our next training session is at the Beehive on the 21st of November in individual giving and is sold out. We've evaluated all of the sessions. We've had positive feedback with nearly everyone agreeing that the training was relevant, of a high standard, and improved their knowledge and understanding. It did come to my attention that the Community Voluntary Service, CVS, were sometimes providing quite similar training. So going forward, if there is limited funding to continue this ACE training, I'd suggest that CVS provide this service more generally going forward. Then the second strand was the Creative East Devon Fund. We had a budget of £25,000 for this, and this made up the majority of the year 2 spend. So you can see some of the recipients listed here. This was the first grant scheme run by EDDC with an explicit focus on supporting arts and cultural organisations and activities. And the main requirement was that they demonstrated alignment with the East Devon Cultural Strategy. For year 2, applications had to be submitted by mid-November last year, with projects fully complete by March 2024. So quite a short window, which did present quite a challenge to some of our applicants. So we did have to have an extension for some projects, such as Sidmouth Jazz Festival. In future, should funding allow, we would love to be able to have an all year round scheme, so that's not time limited, to make sure that we're sort of continuously reviewing applications. But this still remains difficult. The fund is still open, but it does close at the end of this week. And beyond that, because of the uncertainty of SBF, we don't really know if we can continue it. So that sort of rolling basis continues to prove challenging. But there really is a high level of interest in the scheme. To date, we've had a total of 77 expressions of interest in the scheme. So in 2023, we had 22 applications and 14 were awarded. This year, we've had 50 expressions of interest, 20 applications to date, and 10 grants made, and we'll be making more grants this month when the SPF panel meets. So I would love to be able to offer around 3, but as mentioned, the funding situation is still slightly uncertain. Before the grant scheme, EDDC was often approached by different festivals asking for grant funding, and the benefit of having this formal framework for for assessing grants has been really helpful, ensuring that we have transparency and parity in the decision-making process. So it's really created a robust mechanism to process funding requests from cultural organisations with involvement from elected members. And I hope we can continue to do this, because you can see there's such a wide range of projects that we've been able to make happen. So these are some of the UK SBF outputs that we achieved in year 2, and you can read more detail of those in the report. In general, everyone had to write a report on how their projects went and how it aligned with the cultural strategy. And one significant benefit shown across all the projects was significant improvement on participants' health, happiness, and well-being. And that's in line with our second aim of our strategy. So this was a project by Tidelines called Overwintering, which invited members of the public to participate in a musical piece inspired by the birds on the estuary. And you can read some of their feedback there. And this kind of response was typical feedback received from nearly all projects. For example, Chaya Youth, a dance collective who staged a performance of Ophelia with their grant, shared a testimonial. You can read there. And the Paddleboat Theatre, who ran music making sessions at Millwater Academy and the Deaf Academy, both special educational needs schools, shared that the activity had brought out students' confidence and increased their happiness. So, you know, going back to what we were talking about earlier, it can be quite difficult to measure some of these more softer things, but we mustn't disregard these benefits that aren't so can't easily be put into KPIs. In terms of other themes that were represented, loads of projects linked in with climate, the climate emergency. So Tidelines, the Chaya Collective, partnered with an environmentalist group in Exmouth to collect beach waste to make their costumes. And the brilliant Magpies Festival of Thrift, which Jess and Zoe ran in Exmouth, was a week-long festival centering on promoting reuse and recycling of goods. Additionally, the Sidmouth Winter Lights Festival created art installations designed to prompt visitors to reflect on the impacts of climate change and invited them to write a message to send to their local MPs with a call to action. In terms of cultural tourism, 3 of the grants made last year were to festivals, and this summer we awarded 4 more grants that were specific to festivals, including the upcoming Exmouth Film Festival, Sidmouth Folk Festival, Budleigh Salterton Literary Festival, and Sidmouth Science Festival, which obviously all have wider economic impact. It was evident that all the projects funded that they also address the theme of supporting training and employment opportunities in the cultural industries, because they commissioned local artists to design art installations and run workshops, and also inspired younger residents to consider a career in the arts. 6 of the 14 funded projects in year 2 had an explicit focus on working with young people, partnering with local schools and colleges. There was also a really good geographical spread of the projects, including in new places like the Cranbrook Art Club pilot delivered by the Youth Arts Health Trust on Cranbrook Educational Campus. So overall, the grant scheme has been hugely positive, with a wide spread in both the aims achieved and the locations and types of beneficiaries reached. And it's proved an effective and low-cost way of supporting cultural organisations, as well as delivering the UK SBF outputs and outcomes and themes in the East Devon Cultural Strategy. This is just a reminder of our goals in the cultural strategy, that all the projects needed to align with at least one of these and measure them. And furthermore, the funding did act as crucial seed funding for some organisations to help them submit larger bids, and using the Creative East Devon Fund as match. And most notably, Paddleboat Theatre subsequently applied to the National Lottery Heritage Fund and was successful in receiving a grant of over £100,000, linking to one of our core aims here, which is that we want to increase investment in the arts. So that's a sort of summary of the Year 2 activity. And just before I wrap up, I'd just like to share another project that I've been working on with my colleague Jerry, which is the East Devon Cultural Tourism Map. This is the sort of final draft that we're hoping will go to print this week, and it's been a really exciting project highlighting that we do have so much going on across the district. So this is the printed version. You'll see it covers a wide range of different genres of culture, and when you fold the map, you'll see the key and the listings detailed here, and you'll also be able to scan the QR code that will take you to a digital version of the map. Jerry's due to speak about LVEP, and she can go into a bit more detail about how we plan to distribute and promote this map, but I did want to share it here now. I think that's everything, but I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was quite a whirlwind tour, I think. So thank you for that. No, that was brilliant. Fantastic to see the variety of projects that you were funding as well. A huge range of totally diverse projects there. Really exciting. Okay, a couple of questions. Charlie.
Not so much a question. I just wanted to Ollie, just say a huge thank you to Sarah and the work that she's been doing. It's been absolutely fantastic in terms of setting up, really from scratch, a number of initiatives and programs. And I think for me, it's encapsulated with the success of the Creative East Devon Fund, which just shows that with a relatively small amount of money, the impact that it can have, as you quite rightly say, Ollie, across a huge range of communities and a diverse sort of portfolio of activities, events and programs. And if nothing else, shows the value of how some seed funding like that can really make a difference within, our sort of grassroots communities. And that says it all. And it's so frustrating from a personal point of view that there is uncertainty about the future for the Shared Prosperity Fund, because the work that Jerry's team, been doing with that has been fantastic, and it has been life-changing for so many communities. And really hopeful that the government can see a way forward with the scheme beyond just this additional sort of 12 months, because it really has been catalytic in terms of the sorts of initiatives and activities that we've seen in East Devon. So just to say, for the record, Sarah, just a fantastic year, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Charlie. Well put. But, well, if perhaps if at least they do cancel the Shared Prosperity Fund, they'll put something similar in place, or a range of funding streams that support the same kind of activities. And I think we need to make the point to government as well, how valuable this, as you say, small amounts of seed funding can make a huge difference. Okay, Peter Faithfull. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if I'm repeating the question before, but I noticed Ottery Tar Barrels is recognised on the map. I mean, are we recognised as a cultural something, and do they qualify for any support funding? Or I know we used to do the sweeping for nothing, and now we're charging, or we were charging. I assume we still are. So I don't know what support the Carnival and Tar Barrels do get.
So as you say, we absolutely recognise it as a iconic event that happens annually in East Devon, and we wanted to represent it on the cultural map. The organisation is very welcome to apply to the Creative East Devon Fund, and I believe they have in the past. It is competitive. We have far more applications than we can actually give out funding for. So we do have a scoring system in place to ensure that there's value for money and it's achieving various different outcomes. But I'd be happy to have a conversation separately about that.
Thanks, Sarah. Richard Dorbar. Richard. Don't forget to unmute, Richard.
Hello.
Probably on the bottom left of your screen.
Apologies. I've seen other people do that and, you know, thought I won't be as foolish as that, but there we are. An obvious point, I thought that map that you've produced is absolutely fantastic and a very obvious thing, David, but that presents a number of possibilities for filming, surely. You know, you're probably aware of all of them, but I thought the map and that whole thing is fantastic and really helpful for tourism and so on, and filming. Thanks.
Yeah, good point. You know, a map showing different events, maps showing locations. Yeah, we need a variety of them, I think, David. But yeah, good point. I think we've lost Nick for a minute. I think he's had yet another phone call. So any other comments? Okay, I don't see Nick coming in. So given our time is pressing, I think if you're all happy, we'll move on to an update from Gemma Girvan at Thelma Hulbert Gallery. Thank you for your patience, Gemma. And I know I'm going to have to thank Jerry even more for her patience. Over to you.
Hiya, can you see my screen there?
We can, yep.
And that's full screen, isn't it? Great. So
It is
yes,
now,
hi, I'm
yeah.
Gemma Girvan. I'm the gallery manager and curator at Thelma Hulbert Gallery, now permanently in post, so very thrilled about that. I'm also the ACE Craft and Visual Arts Champion. So when we last met in June, I mentioned that our Create Our Space Art Council funded project was coming to an end, and that I'd report back on the evaluation of that project. So the project has encouraged young people between the ages of 7 and 25 into gallery spaces and to engage with visual arts. It's been an absolute pleasure evaluating this project and seeing all of the outcomes and everything achieved during the last year or so. This is largely thanks to our engagement officer, Anna Arusi, and the hard work that she's put into it. I have also sent a film to Alethea, which summarises the project, which would be really great for you all to see. If you need a copy of that, either ask Alethea or myself, we can send that to you. But here are some of the highlights. So we employed our first student intern. We delivered over 30 schools workshops engaging with more than 1,000 young people. We reached over 5,000 people directly engaging in the project and over 10,000 more widely. We welcomed to THG 26 of the 33 EX postcodes. We delivered over 75 workshops, events and festival events, and successfully hosted 2 summer art weeks, which have been new to the Thelma Hulbert Gallery. So I'm thrilled with how they were received. So again, when we last met, I talked about that we were going for more Arts Council funding to extend this project and all the positives that have come from it. And I'm thrilled to let you know that we were successful in that funding application and have received £29,000 to what we're calling at the moment our new COS project, so new Create Our Space project. So it's quite an extensive application, so I won't go into full details of it, but just some of the highlights. So we'll continue to work with young people to build our youth network. We'll want to establish our student intern opportunity. Work with community groups to build long-term relationships, including East Devon tenants and youth groups, to continue to take artists into secondary schools to build community confidence in the gallery and creative arts, and to find a more portable solution to our creative cabin, so we're calling it the Creative Cabinet, and to build awareness of hidden disabilities through programming and training. So I look forward to feeding back more on that project when we next meet. I just wanted to do a quick overview of the exhibitions that have just happened at the gallery. Find where my notes are. So we've had a Seam, a Visible Thread. So this exhibition was a touring exhibition, and we were the last venue on that exhibition programme. It was a fully funded Arts Council project, so came to us that way. A textiles exhibition went down really well with our visitors. We had good visitor figures to the exhibition, and also workshops and demonstrations. So we'll certainly be repeating textile exhibitions in the future. We've just closed on Saturday 2 exhibitions. One, Philippa Lawrence, A Space Between. Philippa is an artist based in Bristol at Spike Island, and her exhibition was very much about materials and process. And then upstairs, in the upstairs gallery, we had Anne Jackson, the Witchcraft series. So Anne works in these large tapestries, they're knotted tapestries, and their subject matter is obviously Witchcraft series, so quite a fitting time to have that exhibition on with Halloween happening during the exhibition. Both artists gave talks and also worked with our wellbeing group that meets at the gallery every Thursday. These are two very strong exhibitions. We were quite worried about how they would work together, but actually it was very successful having the two side by side, and yeah, was very good for visitor figures. So we'll certainly be looking at that way of working in the future. So on to present makers, my favourite time of the year. We're currently accepting works from the artists, and the art exhibition starts on the 16th of November. So we'll have a launch day for this, not our traditional private view, but a launch day where we'll have demonstrations from some of the artists during the day. So please do come along to that. It's a really nice way to launch the exhibition, and it will continue to the 24th of December. So please do come along. I really wanted to tell you about this exhibition as well. We've been really excited about being part of this project. So it's telling our stories, finding our roots. So this exhibition showcases the wealth of stories that make up Honiton's multicultural heritage through art, audio and visual displays. It's funded by National Lottery Heritage Fund and continues on from similar projects in Exeter, Tiverton, Bideford and Oakhampton. So the project applied for Creative East Devon Fund and was successful, and have a British Mexican artist who's been commissioned to make a piece especially for the exhibition and work with a local primary school. So Jess Huffman, as many of you will probably know, has worked with volunteers to collect oral histories from people in Honiton with ethnically diverse backgrounds, and to research archives to uncover multicultural stories. So this exhibition runs to the 21st of December. So again, please do come along to this because we're really excited to be part of it. I'm really excited to present our 2025 programme. So this is the first programme that I, as manager and curator, have put together. So the theme is community in place. So through this, we aim to strengthen our ties with both our local and artistic communities through the following initiatives. So encouraging emerging artists, so providing opportunities for new talent, collaborating with local artists and photographers, showcasing new unique perspectives, bringing renowned artists to rural settings. So that creates a platform for local audience to engage with established artists, to continue our climate focused exhibitions. So highlighting interconnectedness of, hard word to say, of climate and racial justice through impactful programming, and embedding equity, diversion, inclusion and accessibility into our programming delivery. So we kick off with an exhibition by artist Ashish Gardiali. Ashish is a filmmaker, and climate and racial justice is very much at the heart of his work. So Ashish is written into our Create Our Space funding application, and we'll work with young people to create whatever they want to create. We don't want to dictate that. So we'll see what that outcome is. And also Ashish will continue our climate conversations programme in his unique way. So we're looking forward to that. We're really excited to be having a James Virilius exhibition that will be in May. I don't know if you know James Virilius. He is the son of Eric Virilius, and throughout the sort of 1970s to the 1990s, was in Beeford documenting rural farming. He took thousands of photographs. There's a series called An English Eye, which is in the Burton at Bideford collection, and we're really exciting. We're going to be borrowing some of those pieces to exhibit. We think there's also going to be a commercial opportunity to this exhibition because of how popular his work is. So there'll be cards and prints and books being sold alongside. So we think that will go down well, and also visitor figures. We think it will be a popular exhibition for visitors. We then go on to our THG Open, which is always very popular, and again creates income through application fees, and then also the works are for sale during the exhibition. And then we go on to CAMP, who are a collective based in Cornwall and Devon, so contemporary art membership platform. So again, this group will be working as part of our new Create Our Space project, and working with young people to create something, whether that be an exhibition, a piece of work, commission of artists, whatever that might be. And then we're also encouraging emerging artists as part of this exhibition. So again, really excited about this one. And then we, of course, go on to Present Makers at the end of the year again. So yeah, that's a quick summary from me. And please do ask any questions. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Gemma. Another whirlwind tour there.
Fantastic. Sorry, you're a bit fast, wasn't it?
No, so many good things going on, and yeah, I keep kicking myself. Oh, I missed that exhibition. I'd like to have seen that one, but I definitely recommend the James Virilius. Paul will be in there as a photographer. They are fantastic. I've got an Eric Virilius print.
Yeah, I'm really excited about having that one.
Yeah, that's a real scoop, really, because he's internationally known, and they are wonderful photographs. They're not all quite as gritty as the two we saw featuring terrible weather, but there's some very humorous ones as well. Lovely. Okay, Councillor Nick Hookway.
Right, thank you, Chair. Apologies, I had to disappear for a moment. Sarah was speaking. I had to deal with a phone call from the bank. Somebody's trying to claim my card today. Anyway, right. So anyway, thank you very much to Gemma for a very interesting presentation. I always enjoy the Thelma Hulbert openings. I think there's some very interesting work going on there with some very interesting themes. Looking forward to the exhibitions on community and place. I think that's a very important area we need to try to broaden people's horizons on. Placemaking, which I've been involved with, can be quite challenging, and I think anything that helps with that is absolutely to be welcomed. May I also, Chair, just say thank you also to Sarah. I thought there was a fabulous report there, and thank you again, echoing Charlie's comments about all the hard work that Sarah's done. It's really been fabulous. Very, very pleased with that. And just to finish off with that, I took the note about the Shared Prosperity Fund and just funding in general. I am meeting Richard Ford, MP, on Friday, and I will raise these issues with him because I think there are the present new government has missed one or two tricks about funding a whole range of issues to do with culture and tourism. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Well made. Okay, Councillor Ian Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, well, basically say what Nick's just said. I think it's wonderful. I've been to several of the displays there, thoroughly enjoyed it, very professional. Don't look forward to the 16th of November one quite so much because that always costs me a fortune, but I will be there to get my Christmas presents sorted. Thank you.
Thank you. And don't forget your credit card in that case, Ian. Or is it hard cash with you?
We'll take anything.
Always prefer cash.
Right. Charlie.
Yeah, just very briefly, Ollie, just I think Gemma's been very modest. I just want to say huge congratulations on securing the Arts Council funding. It has become so competitive out there because of the squeeze that's been put on arts and culture funding more generally, you know, over the last, well, since austerity really, that, you know, everybody is now chasing, you know, an ever diminishing amount of money. So to secure that funding is real testament to you, Gemma, and your team. And I agree, I'm really excited about your first programme for 2025. Really looking forward to that and touching some really important themes there. And I think, you know, from that, you know, it's a great base to build from. So thank you and congrats.
Yeah, good point, Charlie. I mean, it is very hard to get Arts Council funding, but I think the strength of what you're doing there is so obvious, and we are so fortunate to have a gallery of that quality and that high level of exhibition in East Devon. So it's real success. Okay. We have no more speakers, so we will move swiftly on to the Local Visitor Economy Partnership. And that's Jerry Pantiva. Is that right, Jerry? Is that how you say it, Pantiva?
Absolutely, spot on. Thank you.
Our Senior Economic Development Officer. Here we go, Ian, one for you. Here's the money.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me well. I'll try to be brief. I'm mindful of the time, but of course I'll be able to answer any questions you might have. Do you see my screen now?
Not yet, no.
Just a second.
That's coming up now.
Yep.
Yep.
Great.
That's it, full screen.
Thank you very much. So I just thought it's actually quite timely speaking at the end of this meeting, covering some of the latest developments in tourism, as tourism was mentioned in several of the talks, both from, you know, different perspectives, from Screen Devon, from Southwest Museums, from a lot of the work the festivals deliver. And Sarah mentioned the fantastic cultural tourism map project we're working. So I just wanted to brief the forum on one of the more recent developments, but significant developments in the tourism sector, the formation of local visitor economy partnerships. I don't expect many of you would have understanding or knowledge of these developments, so I'll try to briefly summarize what they are, what's their function, what they're doing, and what specifically is happening in Devon. So in 2020, the government announced that they're restructuring the way tourism organizations and so-called destination management organizations in the UK, in England work. And they wanted to see a less fragmented, more strategic type of organizations working throughout England. They want this to be high-performing organizations with a really strategic focus, engaging with government at kind of top level, and leading on shaping national tourism strategy and policy, working with a government, and just helping destination to perform better and achieve better economic growth. There are a number of benefits that obviously these type of organizations are looking to deliver on in terms of a more coordinated approach, having a strategic voice, working in partnership with national, regional organizations, being as the active voice of the tourism in the area, trying to make these areas have better profile, more visibility, ultimately increasing the productivity of the sector, and tourism can be one of the less productive sectors of the economy. So there are a number of benefits that were obvious why this type of reorganization was needed, but in particular why Devon, what was the case for Devon to have one LVEP, and bear in mind it was one of the last areas in the country that actually formed an LVEP. It was only established, or the application was approved in April this year, while the whole process of creating LVEP started in July 22. David earlier mentioned about fragmentation in terms of kind of our filming industry. So it's been historically quite difficult for Devon to come together and to shout in one voice and to really fight the corner for any developments in this area. So I see this as a really positive development. In this way, we really have a seat on the table with other LVEPs. We can directly talk to our national government. We won't be overlooked for funding opportunities because we'll have that direct relationship. So there are a number of significant benefits for the area. In terms of priorities and what LVEPs focus on, and I'll talk more specifically for Devon in a minute, but yeah, it's important aspects like advocacy and leadership for the area. It's very much significant focus on data. Again, something that was mentioned in a few of the presentations, how we can actually justify our investment, what return on investment we get, what's the economic impact of any activity we do. Also, there is a significant focus on quality rather than quantity. Sustainability is absolutely core focus of LVEPs, as well as accessibility, and that ties in perfectly with the core values of our tourism strategy, so very good synergy there. And also it's meant to look at problems or issues that any one tourism organization is unable to deliver on its own. So for example, transport issues, obviously we need to be working with the partners like the Devon County Council or Highways England. So it's unlocking these conversations, having these strategic partnerships and approach in order to unlock some barriers that currently stop or prevent additional growth in the sector. Here, I just kind of wanted to outline, again, bear in mind, this is a very new organization, just kind of being set up. We've only had a couple of meetings of the advisory board, but this kind of points out what our vision is really about prosperity and that bringing that, higher spend to the economy of the area and everyone benefiting from tourism in the area. And as this is going to be like a sort of umbrella, more strategic organization, its aim is to help partners already working and delivering fantastic work to kind of make it easier for them to deliver their priorities. Again, there is a strong focus on spreading and sharing the benefits, whether it's like not, for example, just our coastal communities where they see obviously an increased interest and number of visitors, but also our countryside, or also spreading the season, not just having that influx during the peak season, but creating a year-round driver and offer. And we are already working on initiatives like the cultural tourism map, which exactly wants to highlight everything that is happening in the area. And most of these activities happen throughout the whole year that both visitors and residents can enjoy and explore. In terms of structure, currently there is a steering group that sits at the top of the LVEP. Its current role is basically to set up the whole organization and to appoint a permanent strategic board, which would be basically the leadership of the LVEP. There is also an advisory board, which it represents a few more organizations. On the steering group, currently you have more kind of top tier organizations like Visit Devon, Devon County Council, English Riviera, Destination Plymouth, while on the advisory board you have a wider representation from different destinations, and we are very pleased that East Devon District Council was invited to be part of that advisory board. So we have that direct link opportunity to input and influence decisions that are in alignment with our tourism and cultural strategies. I won't go into the detail how kind of it's all set up, but of course happy to answer any questions later on. And just wanted to highlight the current focus of the Devon and Partners LVEP. So as we speak, a growth plan is being developed. Again, I'll go through kind of what it covers, but that's basically like the the roadmap, what the organization is going to focus on, deliver, identify as priorities, and so on in the next year. One of the projects that are supported by the LVEP, and we've got a lot of input as members of the advisory board, is the Southwest Visitor Economy Hub, which is for the first time and currently the most extensive, basically the best data hub, capturing all sorts of data that drives tourism sector. But for example, just to link it and make it more relevant to the audience today, there is an option to actually input events that are happening in the area, see what's the economic impact, how much more we see in terms of increase, even like parking charges, because colleagues in our parking departments provide stats about the use of our car park. So you can really start getting that very deep and granular and real-time data insight that we've always missed in the past. So that's one really positive and important project. There is another project called Access Able, which focuses on accessibility. It's specifically to tourism businesses, how they showcase their venues. And again, the LVEPs are, coming together to offer opportunities. You can apply for funding and so on. There are obviously a lot of different communications linked to promotional activities, which Visit England, which is like the destination management organization for the whole country. We feed in information. For example, we had to provide which are our top products in Devon, and obviously we talked about and provided a lot of information from East Devon. It's about highlighting opportunities, festivals that are happening. So this is shared to all the channels that Visit England has, which is obviously extensive, and it's on national and international level. Again, another example that links to our work. We supported with a little bit of an enhanced PR, 3 festivals that happened at the same time in September. These were the Food and Drink Festival, Taste East Devon, the Walking Festival, East Devon Walking Festival, and also the Batley Literary Festival. So some iconic, well-established festivals alongside some newcomers, but having that opportunity to showcase some of the key appeals that East Devon has in terms of the great outdoors, our cultural offer, and our amazing food and drink scene. What was a fantastic opportunity, and we pushed that and provided all the information to partners and spread the message through the Visit England channels as well. And obviously, overall, there is direct communication. The chief exec of Destination Plymouth is the contact who works directly with Visit England. So she attends strategic meetings, fits in, any, concerns, opportunities, debates for any changes in national priorities and policies. So just as an example, what are some of the key areas of the growth plan, looking at like some sort of a joined up destination management plan, is engaging with stakeholders, looking at about what kind of business support offer might be developed, and again, looking at how we align with strategic government priorities, accessibility and sustainability. So we've already fed into that growth plan, the amazing work that we do. Again, another positive example from East Devon, which I think is quite specific for Devon. We've invested significantly into improving the accessibility of our beaches, which is not only obviously a great improvement in infrastructure and facilities with people with disabilities, but it's also people with families, with pushchairs, elderly people. So, a massive benefit to residents alongside obviously any visitors we see here in the summer. And obviously that growth plan would look at the makeup of the board, governance questions, marketing opportunities, and so on. And finally, I just wanted to specifically highlight how the work of the LVEP and us being part of that advisory board links to East Devon District Council priorities. Obviously very strong link to the council plan, which obviously talks about implementing our tourism and cultural strategy and developing that high quality offer. With our recently adopted economic development strategy, again, we are looking to support quality, collaboration, sustainability, and accessibility as our core values and principles in our tourism work, and also that forms part of our industrial policy. In the tourism strategy, we're specifically talking about facilitating growth, driving policy change, and working with third parties and behind the scenes. So this is very much our opportunity to do so and to lobby for specific measures that will benefit our district. And last but not least, of course, it links very strongly with the cultural strategy and its focus on cultural tourism and working with partners to benefit and grow our creative and visit economies. That was indeed quite a quick tour through the LWEB. I appreciate it must be something that many of you might have direct involvement or understanding, but that's why I thought it's useful to mention this development. Yeah, hopefully it's only, as I mentioned, just established, it will only grow in its influence and ability to drive positive change. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer alongside the question about the cultural tourism map that Sarah presented earlier.
Got to go now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, did someone just say they had to go? Okay, yeah, it's been a long morning. Still pretty lightweight compared to strategic planning, you know, so Paul and I are of no sympathy. This is the longest meeting I can remember of the Arts and Culture Forum, but I think it just shows the huge variety of initiatives that we've got going on. And from my point of view, it's been very good to see the sustainability and environmental themes that have run through practically everything this morning in terms of helping to raise awareness of that. Councillor Barlow, you haven't let me down.
I try not to, Chair. Thank you very much for the report. I just wondered, what is our investment? You talk about our investment. Is it actual cash, or again, is this officer time more than cash? And who sits for East Devon District Council on the LVAP?
Thank you, Ian. Very good point. So no, there is no financial commitment from East Devon District Council. It's only officer time, and the representative on the board is myself in my senior economic development role, leading on the delivery of our tourism strategy. In terms of how the LVAP finance, obviously not really something I can delve into much deeper in this forum, but currently it actually doesn't come with any funding from government either. So it's all done based on the time, effort, expertise that everyone involved volunteers. But there is hope that there would be some future opportunity, at least for co-funding from government, because you appreciate it's not easy to drive this significant work just on volunteers, basically. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I think we're losing Richard as well. Okay, Jess.
Hi, Jerry. Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. You mentioned the Southwest Visitor Economy Hub, and how like would it be? Is it going to be possible for things like to get data on things like the economic impact of the Exmouth Festival? How does it work? Where does your data come from? I wasn't quite. I didn't quite sort of follow who that serves, basically.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's thank you, Jess. That's again a very good point. Obviously, I can link you up with the people who lead on the project. It's something that was created, about a year ago, and hopefully something that will last. But currently, it's open to tourism businesses. So basically, tourism organizations and businesses can sign up for it for free. There is then expectations that you input your data, because that's the only way that, the more data is input, the more valuable the insights and the reports become for everyone. But of course, it's like anonymized or, made in a way that makes sense for the businesses. So I can definitely put you in touch. And it's, I'm not sure how it works with, like, for example, Exmouth Town Council to have an access, but we have as East Devon District Council. So I'm sure I can explore this in more detail, so we can see how we can monitor and impact, important events.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to get some data. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, good point, Jess. Nick.
Yes, thank you, Ollie. Yes, thank you, Jerry, for your presentation. That was very helpful indeed. Oh, he's not there. I was going to say, oh, he's back again. So in answer to Councillor Barlow's question, Jerry regularly updates me about the LVEP. It's relatively new and sort of pre-shadows the Devon and Torbay CCA. And it's actually slightly better because it's got all authorities in Devon involved. Obviously, it's a very critical thing to do, but at the moment it is still an officer-led meeting. At some point, we will get elected representatives going along. And I just wanted to say really that I think it's a very useful presentation to know about, because we do need to understand and appreciate that there's a very clear link between tourism and culture. It's like a circular economy, really. We put on cultural activities, that brings in tourists. We get more tourists, they find out about cultural activities and how nice it is down here, and they come back again. So you know, there are very important links, and the tourism and the cultural strategies were designed with that in mind right from the beginning. So you know, that's good to see it's happening. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Nick. And I mean, things like the Sidmouth Folk Festival, very hard to underestimate the effect and the impact that has, and the number of people who come year after year because they just love coming.
Yeah.
And see a bit of the local area while they're here, hopefully.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a huge impact. Okay, do we have any more questions? Okay, in that case, thank you all very much for your patience. It's been a long meeting, but absolutely fascinating. And that brings our meeting to an end. So thank you all very much for your patience and for all the different presentations we've had this morning. And for the support we've had. Thank you, Alethea and Sarah. And we'll just remind you that until the live streaming and recording has stopped, you can still be seen and heard. So just save your brick